Nathan Brooks stood frozen in his neighbor's doorway, a white dress shirt clutched in his trembling hands, as Emily Carter's tear-filled eyes met his. "I'm in love with you," she whispered, her voice breaking on words she'd held back for 8 months. He'd only come to ask which shirt to wear on his first date since his divorce, a simple question that shattered the careful distance they'd maintained. Now, with his daughter asleep next door and another woman waiting at a restaurant across town, Nathan realized the life he'd built on routine and safety was about to collapse. Sometimes the truth doesn't wait for the right moment. It simply refuses to stay hidden any longer. Before we continue with Nathan's story, please take a moment to like this video and comment with your city below. I love seeing how far these stories travel and connecting with viewers around the world. Now, let's step into that hallway and discover what happens when the heart recognizes what the mind has been denying. The October rain came down in sheets against the kitchen window, turning the Denver skyline into a watercolor blur of lights and shadows. Nathan Brooks stood at the counter, methodically preparing his daughter's lunch for the next day. Turkey sandwich cut into triangles because she insisted they tasted better that way. Apple slices arranged in a small container. A juice box tucked into the side pocket of her unicorn backpack. His hands moved with the practiced efficiency of a man who'd performed this ritual 1,000 times, each motion carrying the weight of responsibility he'd shouldered alone for 3 years. "Daddy, can I have the purple grapes instead of the green ones?" Lily's voice drifted from the living room where she sat cross-legged in front of the television, her dark curls, so much like her mother's, falling across her face as she concentrated on her coloring book. "We only have green ones, sweetheart," Nathan called back, his voice carrying the gentle patience that had become second nature to him. "But I'll get purple ones at the store tomorrow, okay?" "Okay?" The response came easily, without argument. At 6 years old, Lily had learned to accept small disappointments with a grace that sometimes broke Nathan's heart. She'd learned too early that life didn't always give you what you wanted, that sometimes people left and didn't come back, that Daddy's promises were the only ones she could count on. Nathan sealed the lunch container and placed it in the refrigerator, then glanced at the clock on the microwave, 7:47 p.m. Bedtime was at 8:30, which meant bath time in 20 minutes, then story time, then the careful negotiation of just 5 more minutes that Lily had perfected into an art form. The evening stretched ahead with the comfortable predictability of a well-worn path, and Nathan found solace in that predictability. Structure was safety. Routine was armor against the chaos that had once torn his family apart. He moved into the living room and settled onto the couch beside his daughter, watching as she carefully colored inside the lines of a butterfly's wings. She'd chosen purple for one wing and blue for the other, her small tongue poking out slightly in concentration. These quiet moments were the ones Nathan treasured most, the space between dinner and bedtime when the world narrowed to just the two of them, when the pressures of single parenthood gave way to simple presence. "Is it pretty?" Lily held up the coloring book, her brown eyes seeking his approval with an intensity that never failed to move him. "It's beautiful, Lilybee. You're getting really good at staying in the lines." She beamed at the praise, then returned to her work with renewed focus. Nathan watched her for a moment longer, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the way her small fingers gripped the crayon, the pure concentration in her expression. 3 years ago, he'd stood in a hospital room holding this tiny person for the first time while his wife Sarah recovered from an emergency C-section. He'd made promises that day, to protect her, to provide for her, to be the father she deserved. What he hadn't known then was that within 2 years, he'd be keeping those promises alone. The divorce had been quiet, as divorces go. No dramatic fights, no thrown dishes, no screaming matches in lawyers' offices. Sarah had simply grown tired of motherhood, tired of the suburban life they'd built, tired of being married to a man whose idea of adventure was trying a new pizza place. She'd left on a Tuesday morning while Lily was at daycare, her goodbye note placed carefully on the kitchen counter next to the coffee maker. Brief, apologetic, final. She'd moved to Seattle with a man she'd met at her yoga studio, someone who represented spontaneity and freedom and all the things she felt she'd sacrificed by becoming a mother at 24. Nathan hadn't fought for custody. Sarah had made it clear she didn't want to be a primary parent, and he couldn't force someone to love their child the way they should. So he'd become both mother and father to Lily, learning to braid hair through YouTube videos, mastering the politics of playground friendships, becoming fluent in the language of 6-year-old girls. He'd moved them from the house in the suburbs to this smaller apartment closer to his work, rebuilding their life piece by piece into something stable and safe. The knock on the door pulled Nathan from his thoughts. He glanced at the clock again. 8 o'clock exactly. That would be Emily, returning the casserole dish he'd lent her last week. "Is that Miss Emily?" Lily's head popped up from her coloring, her face brightening with immediate joy. "Probably. You keep coloring while I answer the door, okay?" Nathan crossed the small living room and opened the door to find his neighbor standing in the hallway, casserole dish in hand and her usual warm smile on her face. Emily Carter had moved into the apartment next door 8 months ago. A medical student at the University of Colorado who kept her regular hours and occasionally appeared in the hallway, looking like she'd just survived a war. They'd struck up an easy friendship built on convenience and proximity. He'd helped her move furniture. She'd accepted packages for him when he was at work. They'd fallen into the habit of brief conversations whenever their paths crossed. "I finally remembered to wash this and bring it back," Emily said, holding out the dish. "That casserole lasted me 3 days. You're a lifesaver, Nathan." "It's nothing special, just chicken and rice." To someone who lives on vending machine coffee and granola bars, it's gourmet. Emily's auburn hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore scrubs decorated with cartoon stethoscopes, her pediatrics rotation uniform. Despite the exhaustion evident in the shadows under her green eyes, she radiated a warmth that always seemed to brighten the dimly lit hallway. "How's Lily doing?" "Good. Currently creating a masterpiece with her crayons." Nathan took the dish, then hesitated, aware of the time but unwilling to be rude. "Do you want to come in for a minute? I just made coffee." "I wish I could, but I have to be at the hospital in an hour for a night shift." Emily glanced past him into the apartment where Lily sat, then back to his face. "Rain check?" "Sure. Get some rest when you can." Says the man who single-handedly parents a 6-year-old while working full-time. Emily's smile softened into something gentler, more knowing. "You're doing a great job, Nathan." "I hope someone tells you that regularly." The compliment landed with more weight than she probably intended. Nathan felt something shift in his chest, gratitude mixed with a loneliness he usually kept carefully contained. "Thanks, Em. That means a lot." They stood there for a moment, the hallway quiet except for the distant sound of rain against windows. Emily opened her mouth as if to say something else, then seemed to think better of it. Instead, she offered a small wave and turned toward her own apartment door. Nathan closed his door and leaned against it briefly, casserole dish still in his hands. He thought about Emily's words, about someone telling him he was doing a great job. The truth was, most days he felt like he was barely keeping his head above water, managing rather than excelling, surviving rather than thriving. But Lily was happy and healthy and loved, and that had to be enough. "Daddy, bath time!" Lily's voice carried from the living room, her internal clock as reliable as any alarm. "Coming, sweetheart." The evening routine unfolded with its familiar choreography. Bath time with its negotiations over hair washing, pajamas with the unicorns that Lily insisted brought good dreams. 2 stories instead of 1 because she'd eaten all her vegetables at dinner. The ritual of tucking in, of smoothing back dark curls, of answering the same questions she asked every night. "Daddy, will you be here when I wake up?" "I'll always be here when you wake up, Lily B. Promise?" "Promise." "Even when I'm a grown-up?" Nathan smiled, his heart constricting with love and the bittersweet knowledge that one day this question would no longer be asked. "Even when you're a grown-up. Now close those eyes. Morning comes faster when you sleep." "Will you leave the door open a little?" "Just like always." He adjusted the door to leave a slice of light from the hallway falling across her bed, then stood watching as her breathing gradually deepened into sleep. This was the hardest part of every day, the moment when his responsibilities ended and his solitude began. The apartment stretched before him, empty and quiet except for the sound of rain and his own thoughts. Nathan moved through the apartment, tidying up with automatic movements. Crayons returned to their box. Coloring books stacked neatly on the shelf. Lily's backpack positioned by the door for the morning. The casserole dish washed and dried. Each task completed brought him closer to the moment when there would be nothing left to do but sit with himself and that was always the moment he dreaded most. He settled onto the couch with his laptop, checking emails and scrolling through news he barely absorbed. This was his life now. Work and Lily, Lily and work, with small moments of neighborly kindness breaking up the monotony. He dated once since the divorce, a brief and uncomfortable dinner with a woman from the electrical supply company who'd spent the entire evening talking about her ex-husband. He hadn't tried again. Dating required energy he didn't have and hope he couldn't afford. Besides, what woman wanted to take on a single father with a 6-year-old daughter and a life built entirely around routine? His phone buzzed with a text message. Nathan glanced at the screen, expecting something work-related, then felt his stomach drop slightly as he read the name. Marcus Chen, his oldest friend from college, and the person most likely to disrupt his carefully maintained equilibrium. The message was simple. Dude, it's been 3 years. You need to get back out there. My cousin just moved to Denver. She's smart, funny, and I already told her about you. Dinner this Saturday? Say yes before you overthink it. Nathan stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. His first instinct was to decline, to list the 100 reasons why dating was impractical and complicated, and something he simply didn't have bandwidth for. But another part of him, a quieter, lonelier part, whispered that maybe Marcus was right. Maybe 3 years was long enough to hide behind his responsibilities. Maybe Lily deserved a father who modeled what healthy relationships looked like instead of modeling isolation. Before he could talk himself out of it, he typed back, "Okay, Saturday," but somewhere casual. Marcus's response came immediately. "Finally. Her name is Jennifer. I'll send you her number. You got this, brother." Nathan set the phone down and leaned back against the couch, feeling equal parts anxiety and something that might have been excitement. A date. An actual date with a real person who didn't know his whole tragic backstory, who might see him as more than just that single dad from the electrical company. The prospect felt both terrifying and necessary, like standing at the edge of a cold pool and knowing the only way forward was to jump. The week that followed passed in its usual rhythm, but with a new undercurrent of nervous anticipation. Nathan exchanged texts with Jennifer, brief, friendly messages that revealed she was a high school English teacher, loved hiking, had 2 sisters, and seemed genuinely kind in her responses. They agreed to meet at a small Italian restaurant on Saturday evening. Nothing fancy, just dinner and conversation to see if there was any spark worth pursuing. The challenge, of course, was finding someone to watch Lily. Nathan's parents lived in Florida. Sarah's family had cut off contact after the divorce, and his usual babysitter had plans that weekend. He'd nearly canceled the entire thing when Emily knocked on his door on Thursday evening, holding a bag of takeout and wearing an expression of determination. "Marcus called me," she announced without preamble, stepping into the apartment when he moved aside. "He said you have a date on Saturday, and you're about to cancel because you can't find a sitter." Nathan closed the door, embarrassment warming his face. Marcus needs to mind his own business. Marcus is trying to make sure his best friend doesn't turn into a hermit. Emily set the takeout bag on the kitchen counter and turned to face him. "I'll watch Lily on Saturday. I have the evening off anyway, and you know she loves when I come over." "Emily, I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering. Actually, I'm insisting." She crossed her arms, and despite her small frame and the teddy bear scrubs she wore, she managed to look formidable. "You've helped me out more times than I can count. Let me return the favor." "You have to study. You're always studying. I'll bring my books. Lily will be asleep by 8:30 anyway, and I can study here just as well as I can at home." Emily's expression softened. "Nathan, you deserve a night out. You deserve a chance at something good. Let me help you." Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to maintain the independence he'd worked so hard to establish, but the truth was he wanted this chance. He wanted to sit across from someone new and feel like a person rather than just a father. He wanted to remember what it felt like to be seen as Nathan, not just as Lily's dad. "Okay," he said finally. "Thank you, Em. Really?" Emily's smile was bright enough to rival the overhead lights. "What are neighbors for? Now, I brought Thai food because I know that's your favorite, and you're going to tell me all about this mysterious Jennifer while we eat." They sat at the kitchen counter sharing pad thai and spring rolls while Lily watched cartoons in the living room. Emily asked questions with genuine interest. What Jennifer did for work, how they'd met through Marcus, whether Nathan was nervous. He found himself relaxing into the conversation, grateful for her easy presence and the way she seemed to understand exactly what he needed without him having to ask. "What should I wear?" Nathan asked at one point, surprised by his own vulnerability. "I haven't been on a first date in over a decade. I have no idea what the protocol is anymore." Emily laughed, the sound warm and unrestrained. "Protocol? Nathan, just be yourself. Wear something that makes you feel confident. Do you even own anything besides work clothes and dad jeans?" "I have nice jeans," he protested, gesturing toward his current outfit. "These are nice jeans." "Those are dad jeans. There's a difference." She stood and moved toward the hallway. "Come on, let's look at your closet. This is actually happening. I'm giving Nathan Brooks a fashion consultation." They spent the next 20 minutes going through his limited wardrobe while Lily remained oblivious in the living room. Emily vetoed several options. Too formal, too casual, too, "I'm chaperoning a field trip." Finally, she pulled out a white button-down shirt that Nathan had forgotten he owned, probably purchased for some long-ago job interview. "This," Emily declared, holding it up, "with your dark jeans and that gray jacket, simple, clean, shows you made an effort without trying too hard." Nathan took the shirt, feeling the soft cotton between his fingers. "You really think this works?" "I think you'll look great." Emily's voice had gone quiet, her green eyes holding his with an intensity that made something flutter in his chest. "Jennifer is lucky. Any woman would be lucky to have dinner with you." The moment stretched between them, loaded with something Nathan couldn't quite name. Then Lily called from the living room asking for juice, and the spell broke. Emily stepped back, smoothing down her scrubs with suddenly busy hands. "I should go," she said quickly. "Early rounds tomorrow, but I'll be here Saturday at 6, okay?" "Okay, thanks again, Em, for everything." She paused at the door, her hand on the knob, and looked back at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Nathan, I hope it's wonderful. I really do. You deserve wonderful." Then she was gone, and Nathan was left standing in the hallway holding a white shirt and wondering why his neighbor's kindness felt like something more complicated than simple friendship. Saturday arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of October day that felt like summer's last gasp before winter settled in. Nathan spent the morning with Lily at the park, pushing her on swings and catching her at the bottom of the slide, storing up these moments like a squirrel preparing for hibernation. She'd seemed to sense his distraction, asking twice if something was wrong, and he'd reassured her that everything was fine, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. The afternoon passed in a blur of preparation. He showered, shaved carefully, applied cologne that had been sitting unused in his medicine cabinet for years. He dressed in the outfit Emily had selected, then second-guessed every element of it. The shirt felt too formal, the jeans too casual, the jacket trying too hard. He changed twice before forcing himself to stick with the original choice. At 5:45, he found himself standing in front of the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the man staring back at him. Somewhere beneath the worry lines and the shadows of exhaustion was the person he used to be, the guy who'd believed in love and possibility and futures that stretched beyond the next bedtime routine. "Daddy, you look fancy." Lily appeared in his bathroom doorway, her assessment delivered with 6-year-old bluntness. "Are you going somewhere special?" "Just dinner with a friend, sweetheart. Miss Emily is going to stay with you tonight." "Yay, can we make cookies?" "You'll have to ask her. But remember, bedtime is still at 8:30, even with Miss Emily here." Lily's face fell slightly, but she nodded with the resignation of a child who knew better than to argue about bedtime rules. Nathan knelt down to her level, smoothing back her curls with gentle hands. "You'll be good for Miss Emily, right?" "I'm always good." The indignation in her voice made him smile. "You're the best. I love you, Lily B." "I love you too, Daddy." She threw her arms around his neck, her small body warm and solid against him. "Have fun at dinner." The doorbell rang exactly at 6 o'clock. Nathan opened it to find Emily standing in the hallway wearing jeans and an oversized cardigan, her medical bag slung over one shoulder and a backpack full of study materials over the other. She looked younger somehow without the scrubs, more like the 26-year-old she actually was rather than the exhausted medical student she often appeared to be. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw him. "Wow, you clean up well." "Is it too much?" Nathan felt the familiar wave of self-doubt. "I can change. It's perfect. You look... She paused, something flickering across her face. You look really good, Nathan. She's going to be blown away. Lily came barreling into the entryway, crashing into Emily's legs with the force of a small, enthusiastic torpedo. Miss Emily, can we make cookies? We can definitely make cookies, Emily laughed, ruffling Lily's hair. But first, let's let your dad finish getting ready so he's not late. Nathan grabbed his wallet and keys, then ran through the mental checklist he'd prepared, emergency numbers on the refrigerator, Lily's bedtime routine written out, Emily's phone number programmed into his contacts even though they'd never actually called each other. Everything organized, everything planned, everything as controlled as he could make it. Nathan, Emily's voice stopped him as he reached for the door. Relax, we're going to be fine. Lily and I are going to have a great time, and you're going to have a great time. Just let yourself enjoy this, okay? He nodded, taking a breath and trying to release the tension that had been building in his shoulders all day. Call me if you need anything. We won't need anything. Now go. The drive to the restaurant took 20 minutes, during which Nathan's mind cycled through every possible disaster scenario. What if he ran out of things to say? What if Jennifer expected someone more interesting, more adventurous, more everything than he actually was? What if he'd forgotten how to connect with another adult on any level beyond the transactional? He parked and sat in his car for a moment, staring at the restaurant's warm lights through the windshield. His phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. You got this, brother. Just be yourself. That's more than enough. Nathan wanted to believe that. He wanted to believe that the person he'd become, single father, reliable employee, good neighbor, was enough to interest someone like Jennifer. But belief required faith, and faith was something he'd misplaced somewhere between the divorce and the lonely nights that followed. He got out of the car and walked toward the restaurant, each step feeling weighted with significance he couldn't quite articulate. This was just dinner, just two people sharing a meal and conversation. It didn't have to be more complicated than that. Jennifer was already seated when he arrived, and Marcus had been right about the basics. She was attractive in an approachable way, with warm brown eyes and an easy smile that suggested she laughed often. She stood to greet him, and they navigated the awkward dance of whether to hug or shake hands, settling on a brief, friendly embrace that felt neither natural nor entirely uncomfortable. It's so nice to finally meet you, Jennifer said as they settled into their seats. Marcus has told me so much about you. All good things, I hope. Mostly good things. Her smile was teasing. He mentioned something about a disastrous camping trip in college? Nathan groaned, remembering the weekend when he'd managed to start a tent fire while attempting to cook s'mores. In my defense, the instruction manual was very unclear about propane usage. They fell into conversation more easily than Nathan had expected. Jennifer was genuinely likable, funny without being cynical, interested without being intrusive, the kind of person who made social interaction feel effortless. They talked about her teaching job and his work as an electrical technician, about favorite books and movies, about her recent move to Denver and his lifelong connection to Colorado. But even as they talked, even as he laughed at her stories and shared some of his own, Nathan found his mind drifting. He thought about Lily and whether she was already in her pajamas. He thought about Emily sitting on his couch with medical textbooks spread around her. He thought about the life he'd built and whether there was actually room in it for this, for dating and possibility and the messy complications of letting someone new into his carefully ordered world. Jennifer reached across the table and touched his hand gently. Nathan, you keep checking your phone. Is everything okay? He realized he'd glanced at his phone 3 times in the last 10 minutes, checking for messages from Emily even though he knew she would call if there was any problem. I'm sorry. I'm just not used to being away from my daughter in the evening. Marcus mentioned you have a 6-year-old. Jennifer's expression was understanding. That must be challenging, doing it all on your own. It's the best thing in my life, Nathan said automatically, then paused, recognizing the deflection. But yes, it's challenging. My whole world revolves around her schedule and her needs. Sometimes I forget I'm supposed to have needs too. Like dinner with a stranger who's probably wondering if you're going to look at your phone all night. Nathan felt his face flush. I'm sorry, that was rude. You're right, I'm being human. Jennifer squeezed his hand briefly before releasing it. You're being a concerned parent. It's actually kind of sweet. But I have a confession to make. What's that? I'm not feeling this either. Nathan blinked, caught off guard by her honesty. What? Don't get me wrong, you're great. Marcus was absolutely right about you being kind and genuine and exactly the type of guy any woman would be lucky to know. But I can tell your heart isn't here. And honestly, mine isn't either. I just got out of a 3-year relationship 2 months ago, and I think I agreed to this because Marcus was so enthusiastic that I got swept up in the momentum. They looked at each other across the table, and suddenly Nathan started laughing, genuine, relieved laughter that felt like pressure releasing from a too-tight valve. Jennifer joined him, and the tension that had been hovering over their entire evening dissipated like morning fog. So we're both disasters pretending to be ready for this, Nathan said. Spectacular disasters. Jennifer grinned. But you know what? Now that the pressure's off, want to just enjoy dinner as two people who are decidedly not on a date? They did exactly that. The rest of the meal passed in comfortable conversation now that neither of them was trying to impress the other. Jennifer talked honestly about her recent breakup and the grief of losing a future she'd planned. Nathan found himself sharing more about Sarah's departure and the strange combination of relief and abandonment he'd felt watching her leave. "Can I tell you something?" Jennifer said as they waited for the check. "The fact that you keep thinking about your daughter, that you can't fully relax and enjoy yourself because part of you is always worried about her, that's not a flaw. That's the kind of devotion any kid would be lucky to have. Don't apologize for it." Nathan felt something loosen in his chest. "My ex-wife used to say I was too focused on Lily, that I couldn't separate being a father from being a person." Your ex-wife was wrong. Being a father is part of being a person. It's not something you can partition off. The right woman will understand that. She'll love that about you. You think so? I know so. Jennifer pulled out her wallet as the check arrived, insisting on splitting the bill despite Nathan's protests. "And here's some unsolicited advice from a relative stranger. When you find that woman, don't let fear keep you from reaching for it. Single parents deserve love just as much as anyone else. Maybe more, actually, because you've already proven you know how to give it unconditionally." They parted in the parking lot with genuine warmth and promises to stay in touch as friends. Nathan sat in his car for a moment, processing the strange evening, how a failed date had somehow become exactly what he needed. Jennifer was right. He wasn't ready for this. But maybe that was okay. Maybe readiness wasn't something you achieved, but rather something you discovered along the way. The drive home passed quickly, and Nathan found himself actually looking forward to walking back into his apartment, to checking on Lily, to returning to the life he'd built. It might be small and quiet and revolve entirely around a 6-year-old's schedule, but it was his, and that meant something. He climbed the stairs to his floor and paused outside his door, hearing voices inside. Emily's low murmur and Lily's sleepy responses. It was past 8:30, which meant his daughter should have been asleep, but he couldn't bring himself to be annoyed. Instead, he felt grateful. For Emily's presence, for her willingness to help, for the way she'd become woven into the fabric of their daily life without him quite noticing when or how. Nathan took a breath, preparing to knock, then realized he'd left his key with Emily earlier. He should knock. That would be the normal thing to do. But something made him hesitate, made him take a moment just to stand in the hallway and gather himself before stepping back into his real life. The door opened before he could decide, and Emily stood there looking startled. "Oh, I heard footsteps and thought, how did it go?" It was, Nathan paused, searching for the right word. Educational. Emily's eyebrows rose. Educational? That's not usually how people describe good dates. Is Lily asleep? Finally. She negotiated 3 extra stories and insisted we make cookies even though it was already past her bedtime. We compromised on slice and bake cookies and 2 stories. Emily stepped back to let him in, and Nathan moved past her into the familiar space of his apartment. Everything looked the same but felt different somehow. The kitchen was clean but showed evidence of cookie making, a dusting of flour on the counter, the smell of vanilla hanging in the air. Lily's door was open just a crack, exactly how she liked it. Emily's study materials were spread across the coffee table but neatly organized, as if she'd been careful not to disturb the normal flow of their space. "Thank you for watching her," Nathan said, setting his keys on the counter, "and for apparently letting her stay up past bedtime." She promised it was a special occasion. Emily's smile was slightly sheepish. I'm a total pushover. I'm going to be a terrible parent someday. You're going to be a great parent. You already are with your patients, from what you've told me. They stood there in the kitchen, the overhead light casting soft shadows across Emily's face. She'd taken her hair down from its earlier bun, and it fell in waves past her shoulders, catching the light in shades of auburn and copper. For the first time, Nathan noticed how tired she looked. Not just the physical exhaustion of medical school, but something deeper, something that lived behind her eyes and showed in the careful way she held herself. "So, are you going to tell me about this educational date?" Emily asked, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed. "Or do I have to guess?" "There's not much to tell. Jennifer is great, funny, smart, easy to talk to. We decided we're better suited as friends than anything romantic." "Already? You were only gone 2 hours. Sometimes you just know." Nathan moved to the refrigerator and pulled out 2 bottles of water, handing one to Emily. "Neither of us was really ready. We spent most of dinner talking about why we weren't ready, which was probably the most honest conversation I've had in months." Emily took the water but didn't open it. Her fingers traced patterns on the condensation forming on the plastic. "Are you disappointed?" "No. Relieved, actually." Nathan leaned against the opposite counter, creating space between them that felt necessary for reasons he couldn't articulate. "I spent the whole evening thinking about being here. About Lily's bedtime routine and whether you two were having fun and whether I'd left enough snacks out. Jennifer noticed I kept checking my phone. That's not very romantic. No, it's not. But it's honest." Nathan took a drink of water, buying time to organize his thoughts. "The thing is, I don't think I know how to do this anymore. Dating, I mean. Opening up to someone new, making room in my life for complications." "Love isn't a complication," Emily said softly. "It's just love." "Easy for you to say. You're young, unattached, no responsibilities beyond medical school and yourself. Your life has room for spontaneity and possibility." Something flickered across Emily's face, hurt, or maybe anger, or maybe something else entirely. She set the water bottle down on the counter with careful precision. "You think my life is simple?" "I didn't mean I work 16-hour days at the hospital. I'm drowning in student debt that will take me 20 years to pay off. I barely sleep. I can't remember the last time I had an actual conversation with someone that wasn't about symptoms or differential diagnoses. And my most meaningful relationship is with the single dad next door who thinks I'm just the helpful neighbor kid because I'm 26 and unattached, and apparently have all this room for spontaneity." Emily's voice had risen slightly, emotion breaking through her usual careful control. Nathan straightened, startled by her intensity. "Em, I didn't mean to minimize what you're dealing with. I just meant, I know what you meant. You meant I don't understand your life because I don't have a child. And you're right. I don't understand what it's like to be a parent. But I understand loneliness. I understand building your entire existence around responsibility and routine because it's safer than risking anything real." The air between them felt charged, electric with something that had been building for months without either of them acknowledging it. Nathan opened his mouth to apologize, to smooth over whatever line he'd inadvertently crossed, but Emily wasn't finished. "You want to know what I did while you were gone tonight?" she continued, her green eyes bright with unshed tears. "I sat on your couch, reading the same paragraph in my textbook 12 times because I couldn't concentrate. I kept thinking about you sitting across from Jennifer, wondering if you were laughing at her jokes, if you were touching her hand across the table, if you were feeling that spark of connection that makes someone forget they were ever lonely." Nathan's heart was pounding now, each beat echoing in his ears like a warning drum. "Emily, I'm in love with you, Nathan." The words came out in a rush, like she'd been holding them back so long that they'd finally forced their way free. "I've been in love with you for months, since you carried my textbooks when I threw out my back. Since you brought me soup when I had the flu even though you barely knew me. Since I heard you singing Disney songs with Lily through the walls and realized that kind of devotion, that kind of love. That's what I want in my life." The hallway clock ticked steadily in the silence that followed. Nathan stood frozen, his mind struggling to process what he was hearing. Emily loved him, his neighbor, his friend, this woman who'd seamlessly woven herself into the edges of his life. She loved him. The truth of it crashed over him like cold water, shocking and undeniable. I don't, I didn't know, he managed finally. Of course you didn't know. You don't see yourself clearly. You think you're just some broke single dad getting by on routine and determination. You don't see how kind you are, how patient, how you light up when Lily laughs. You don't see that some of us would give anything to be part of that. Emily wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand, frustrated at her own tears. I wasn't going to tell you. I was going to keep being the helpful neighbor until you fell in love with someone else and I could move on. But then Marcus called and said you had a date, and I realized I couldn't keep pretending I was okay with just being your friend. Nathan's mind was racing, trying to reorganize 3 years of interactions through this new lens. Every conversation in the hallway, every borrowed ingredient, every small kindness. Had it all meant more than he'd realized? Had he been so focused on his own loneliness that he'd completely missed someone else's? Why didn't you say something before? His voice came out rougher than he intended. Because you weren't ready. You're still not ready. Emily grabbed her backpack and medical bag, movement sharp with emotion. I'm sorry, this wasn't fair. You just got home from a date and I ambushed you with feelings you never asked for. I should go. She moved toward the door, but Nathan reached out instinctively, his hand closing around her wrist. Wait, please. Emily stopped but didn't turn to face him. Nathan could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she was holding herself together through sheer will. He realized he was still holding the white shirt Jennifer had chosen for him, the shirt Emily had picked out, the shirt that had started this entire impossible evening. I don't know what to say, he admitted quietly. You're right. I didn't see it. I didn't let myself see it. But Emily, I can't. You can't do this. I know. She pulled her wrist gently from his grip. You have Lily to think about. You have a life that works. I'm a complication you don't need. I understand. But I had to tell you the truth, even if the timing is terrible. I couldn't keep lying by omission. She opened the door, and the hallway light spilled into the apartment, harsh and unforgiving. Emily paused on the threshold, her back still to him, her voice so quiet he almost missed her next words. For what it's worth, I hope you find someone who makes you as happy as you make everyone around you. You deserve that, Nathan, even if it's not me. Then she was gone, the door closing with a soft click that felt unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. Nathan stood in his kitchen, white shirt still clutched in his hands, his mind spinning with questions that had no easy answers. Through the thin wall separating their apartments, he could hear Emily moving around, the sound of her dropping her bags, the muffled sound that might have been crying or might have been nothing at all. He looked down at the shirt, this simple piece of clothing that had somehow become the catalyst for upending his carefully constructed life. He'd put it on hoping to feel like someone other than just Lily's dad. Instead, he'd ended the evening more confused than ever about who he actually was and what he actually wanted. The apartment felt different now, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. Nathan moved through the familiar space, checking on Lily, who slept peacefully, unaware of the adult complications unfolding around her, tidying the kitchen where hours ago Emily had stood making cookies with his daughter, returning to the living room where her study materials had been spread out. He picked up one of her textbooks, a massive tome on pediatric medicine with her neat notes filling the margins. She'd written, "Remember why you're doing this," on the inside cover, the words slightly smudged as if she'd traced them repeatedly with her finger. Nathan set the book down carefully, feeling like he'd glimpsed something private and precious, a window into Emily's determination, her exhaustion, her hope. His phone buzzed with the text from Marcus. "How did it go? Jennifer said you two hit it off." Nathan stared at the message, unsure how to respond. How could he explain that the date had been fine but irrelevant, that the real earthquake had happened after he came home, that his neighbor had just confessed she was in love with him and he had no idea what to do with that information? He turned off his phone and moved to the window, looking out at the Denver skyline blurred by rain that had started falling again. Somewhere out there, people were making choices that would change their lives. They were taking risks and making mistakes, and occasionally finding exactly what they needed in the last place they thought to look. But Nathan Brooks had learned to be careful. He'd learned that risk led to pain, that hope was dangerous, that the safest thing was to keep your world small and manageable, and focused on the one person who truly depended on you. Lily needed stability, not chaos. She needed routine, not complication. She needed a father who knew what he was doing, not one who was fumbling through emotions he'd spent 3 years trying not to feel. He pressed his forehead against the cool glass and closed his eyes, and in the darkness behind his eyelids, all he could see was Emily's face. Her green eyes bright with tears, her voice breaking on words she'd held back for months. "I'm in love with you." 4 simple words that changed everything and nothing all at once. Nathan stayed at the window for a long time, listening to the rain and the quiet sounds of his daughter sleeping, and the echoing silence of his own heart trying to decide what truth it was ready to admit. The rain continued through the night, a steady percussion against the windows that matched the restless rhythm of Nathan's thoughts. He'd finally gone to bed around 2 in the morning, but sleep remained elusive, his mind replaying Emily's confession in an endless loop. By the time pale dawnlight filtered through his bedroom curtains, he'd examined every interaction they'd ever had, searching for signs he'd missed, moments that should have told him the truth about her feelings. The alarm went off at 6:30, its cheerful chime mocking his exhaustion. Nathan dragged himself out of bed and went through the morning routine on autopilot, coffee brewing, Lily's breakfast prepared, her lunch packed with the purple grapes he'd remembered to buy. When his daughter emerged from her bedroom with sleep-tousled hair and her favorite stuffed bunny clutched under one arm, Nathan felt a surge of gratitude for the normalcy she represented. "Morning, Lily B. Sleep well?" "I had a dream about cookies." Lily climbed onto her chair at the kitchen table, swinging her legs happily. "Miss Emily and I made the best cookies last night. Did you have fun at your dinner?" Nathan poured cereal into her bowl, adding milk with careful precision. "It was nice. Jennifer is a good person." "Are you going to see her again?" The question was innocent, delivered with the straightforward curiosity of childhood, but it hit Nathan like a physical blow. He thought about Jennifer's parting advice, about finding someone who would understand his devotion to Lily, about not letting fear keep him from reaching for love. But love was already standing next door, and he had no idea what to do about it. "Probably just as friends, sweetheart. Sometimes that's how things work out." Lily accepted this with a shrug and attacked her cereal with enthusiasm. Nathan stood at the counter drinking his coffee and watching her, this small person who'd become his entire world. What kind of man would he be if he let his own confusion about Emily disrupt the stability he'd worked so hard to build? What kind of father would he be if he brought romantic complications into a life that functioned perfectly well as it was? The sound of a door opening and closing in the hallway made Nathan's heart jump. He moved to the kitchen window that overlooked the parking lot and saw Emily heading to her car, medical bag slung over her shoulder, her posture rigid with tension even from 3 floors up. He watched her get in and drive away, and the relief he felt was immediately chased by guilt. When had he become the kind of person who was relieved to avoid someone who cared about him? The week that followed established a new and uncomfortable pattern. Emily's schedule at the hospital seemed to shift, or perhaps she was actively avoiding him. Either way, their paths no longer crossed in the hallway or parking lot. The casual rhythm of their friendship had been disrupted, replaced by silence that felt deliberate and painful. Nathan told himself it was for the best, that distance would help both of them move past whatever had sparked between them on Saturday night. But the apartment felt lonelier now, and he found himself listening for sounds through the wall that separated their units, straining to hear evidence of her presence. On Wednesday evening, Lily asked if Miss Emily could come over for dinner. Nathan made excuses about Emily being busy with work, about medical students having unpredictable schedules. His daughter accepted this explanation with the trusting acceptance of a 6-year-old, but the question made Nathan realize how much Emily had become part of their lives, how her absence left a noticeable gap. Thursday brought an unexpected cold snap, October temperatures plummeting as the first real hint of winter swept through Denver. Nathan came home from work to find his apartment barely warmer than the hallway, the heating system making ominous clicking sounds without producing any actual heat. He spent an hour troubleshooting the thermostat and checking the furnace before admitting defeat. This was beyond his expertise as an electrical technician. This required an HVAC specialist, and probably an expensive one. "Daddy, I'm cold!" Lily stood in the living room wrapped in her comforter, looking small and miserable. The temperature inside had dropped to 58 degrees, and Nathan could see his breath when he exhaled. I know, sweetheart. I'm going to fix it, okay? Why don't you put on your warmest pajamas and we'll have hot chocolate while I figure this out? He got Lily situated with hot chocolate and cartoons, then pulled out his phone to search for emergency HVAC services. The estimates he found made his stomach drop. After-hours service calls started at $200, with repairs potentially running into the thousands if the furnace needed major work. Nathan did quick mental math on his checking account balance and felt the familiar weight of financial anxiety settle across his shoulders. He could cover an emergency repair, but it would mean no cushion for the rest of the month, no margin for error if something else went wrong. A soft knock on his door interrupted his spiraling thoughts. Nathan opened it to find Emily standing in the hallway, wearing an oversized sweatshirt and holding what looked like a space heater. I heard your furnace trying to start up through the wall, she said without preamble, not quite meeting his eyes. It sounds like the igniter might be shot. I have an extra space heater you can use tonight, and I know a guy who does HVAC repairs for reasonable rates. He owes me a favor. Nathan stared at her, awareness washing over him in waves. Awareness of her kindness despite everything that had happened between them. Awareness of how much he'd missed seeing her face these past few days. Awareness of how naturally she'd stepped in to help without being asked. Emily, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. She held out the space heater, and Nathan had no choice but to take it. Give me a minute, and I'll get you his number. He's usually pretty good about same-day service if you call him in the morning. She disappeared into her apartment before Nathan could form a proper response. He stood holding the space heater, feeling its weight as both practical gift and metaphor for everything complicated between them. When Emily returned, she handed him a piece of paper with a name and number written in her neat handwriting. Tell him Dr. Carter referred you. He'll take care of you. Emily finally looked directly at him, and Nathan saw the careful control in her expression, the way she was holding herself together through sheer force of will. How's Lily doing with the cold? She's okay. Hot chocolate and cartoons. Good. Kids are resilient. Emily stepped back toward her door, creating distance. I should go. Early shift tomorrow. Wait. Nathan's voice stopped her, though he had no idea what he actually wanted to say. Thank you felt inadequate. I'm sorry felt presumptuous. I miss you felt dangerous. Emily waited, her hand on her doorknob, her green eyes guarded. The hallway stretched between them like a chasm, 10 feet that might as well have been 10 miles. Thank you, Nathan said finally, knowing it wasn't enough but unable to find words that would be. For the heater and the referral, for helping even though things are weird between us. Things don't have to be weird, Emily said quietly. I told you how I feel. You can't return those feelings. That's allowed to just be what it is. We're adults. We can handle awkward. Can we? Nathan heard the vulnerability in his own question. Because I don't want to lose you as a friend. I don't want you to stop being part of our lives. Something flickered across Emily's face, pain or hope or some mixture of both. I don't want that either, but I need some space right now, Nathan. I need to figure out how to be your friend without wanting more than you can give me. Can you understand that? He nodded, throat tight with emotions he couldn't name. Take whatever time you need. Emily offered a small, sad smile. Get Lily warm. Call that HVAC guy in the morning. And Nathan, stop looking so guilty. You didn't do anything wrong, neither did I. Sometimes feelings just exist, and that's nobody's fault. She went into her apartment and closed the door gently, leaving Nathan standing in the hallway holding a space heater and a piece of paper, and the growing realization that doing nothing was its own kind of choice, its own kind of statement. He set up the space heater in Lily's room and watched as warmth slowly filled the small space. His daughter had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted by the cold and the late hour. Nathan carried her to bed, tucked her in with extra blankets, and sat on the edge of her mattress for a long moment watching her sleep. She looked so peaceful, so untouched by adult complications. He wanted to keep her that way forever, protected in a bubble where divorce and loneliness and confused feelings couldn't reach her. But life didn't work that way. Lily would grow up, would have her own heartbreaks and disappointments, would learn that love was complicated and people left and nothing stayed safe forever. The best he could do was model integrity, show her what it meant to be kind even when things were hard, demonstrate that caring for people mattered more than protecting yourself from pain. The question was whether he was actually living up to that ideal or just hiding behind fatherhood as an excuse to avoid risk. Nathan called the HVAC guy first thing Friday morning. True to Emily's word, the mention of Dr. Carter's name got him an appointment for that afternoon. The repairman, a weathered man in his 50s named Gil, diagnosed the problem in under 10 minutes. Your igniter's dead, and honestly, this furnace is on its last legs. You're looking at maybe one more winter if you're lucky. Then you'll need a full replacement. Gil wiped his hands on his work pants and gave Nathan an apologetic look. I can get you running for today with a new igniter, but start saving up. New furnace installation is going to run you $5,000 to $8,000. Nathan felt the number like a punch to the gut. $5,000 to $8,000 he didn't have and wouldn't have for years given his current financial situation. He thought about Sarah in Seattle with her new husband, probably living in a house with a furnace that worked perfectly, never worrying about whether her daughter was warm enough at night. Do what you need to do to get it running, Nathan said, pushing down the anxiety. And thanks for coming out so quickly. Thank Emily. That girl's got a heart bigger than the whole hospital. Gil pulled tools from his bag and got to work. She helped my grandson when he was in the pediatric ward last year. Stayed after her shift ended just to read him stories when my daughter had to work. We don't forget kindness like that in my family. Nathan watched Gil work, his mind stuck on this glimpse into Emily's life outside their hallway interactions. Of course she stayed late to read to sick children. Of course she went out of her way to help people who needed it. That was who she was. Someone who gave more than she took, who saw needs and filled them without being asked, who loved with a generosity that made Nathan's careful distance feel small and selfish. The furnace roared to life with a clunking sound that didn't inspire confidence, but warm air began flowing through the vents. Gil packed up his tools and gave Nathan the damage report. $350, which was less than Nathan had feared, but still enough to make his budget tight for the next few weeks. Give Emily my regards, Gil said as he headed out, and take care of that girl. Not many like her in the world. The comment hung in the air after Gil left. Nathan stood in his apartment with heat finally flowing and found himself thinking about taking care of Emily, not in the way Gil probably meant, but in the way that mattered. Who took care of her when she worked 16-hour shifts? Who made sure she ate something besides vending machine food? Who listened to her fears about whether she'd be a good doctor, whether she was smart enough, whether the crushing debt and exhaustion would be worth it? He'd been so focused on maintaining his own boundaries that he'd never considered whether Emily had anyone looking out for her the way she looked out for everyone else. That evening, Nathan made twice as much dinner as he and Lily needed. He told himself it was practical, that leftovers would save him time tomorrow. But when he knocked on Emily's door at 7:30 holding a covered dish of chicken pasta, he knew he was lying to himself about his motivations. Emily answered the door in scrubs decorated with cartoon pandas, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, exhaustion written across every line of her face. Her eyes widened when she saw him. Nathan, hi. I made too much dinner. He held out the dish, the lie feeling obvious even to himself. Thought you might want some. Gil said to give you his regards, by the way. Emily took the dish, her fingers brushing his briefly in the exchange. You didn't have to do this. I know, but you helped me with the heater and the referral, and this seems like a small way to say thank you. Nathan shifted his weight, suddenly unsure of himself. Also, I wanted to check if you're okay. You look exhausted. 72-hour rotation in the ER. I think I've forgotten what sleep feels like. Emily leaned against her doorframe, and Nathan could see her struggling to maintain her usual composure. But I'm okay, or I will be once I eat something that isn't from a vending machine and sleep for approximately 15 hours straight. When's your next shift? Not until Monday evening, thank God. They stood there in the hallway, the covered dish of pasta between them like a peace offering, or maybe a question neither of them knew how to answer. Nathan could hear his television through his apartment door, Lily watching her evening cartoons before bath time. Normal life continuing in its normal way while he stood in the hallway, having a conversation that felt weighted with all the things they weren't saying. I should let you eat and rest, Nathan said finally. Yeah. Emily didn't move. Nathan, can I ask you something? When you look at me, what do you see? The question caught him completely off guard. Nathan studied her face, the spray of freckles across her nose, the green eyes that always seemed to see more than people intended to show, the vulnerability she was allowing him to witness despite everything that had happened between them. "I see someone who cares too much," he said honestly. "Someone who gives pieces of herself away to everyone who needs her and probably doesn't leave enough for herself. Someone who's brilliant and kind and stronger than she knows." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "That's not what I meant. I meant, do you see a kid? Some naive medical student who doesn't understand real life? Or do you see a woman?" Nathan's breath caught. He understood suddenly what she was really asking, whether his inability to return her feelings was about her or about his own fear, whether he saw her as someone who could share his life or just as the helpful neighbor who wasn't complicated enough to matter. "I see a woman," he said quietly. "I see someone who deserves everything good. I see someone who scares me because getting close to you would mean risking the stability I've built for Lily, and I don't know if I'm brave enough for that." Honesty. Emily wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I appreciate honesty. I'm not good at this, I'm not good at navigating feelings or knowing the right thing to say, but I need you to know that when I said I didn't see what you felt, it wasn't because you're not worth seeing. It was because I've spent 3 years training myself not to look, not to want, not to hope for anything beyond getting through one day at a time." "I know," Emily said softly. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. Loving someone who can't love you back is terrifying, but at least I was brave enough to tell you the truth. At least I didn't hide behind excuses." The words stung because they were accurate. Nathan had been hiding, behind Lily, behind his responsibilities, behind the comfortable story that he was just doing what was best for his daughter. But maybe what was best for Lily was seeing her father live fully rather than carefully, take risks rather than play it safe, model what it meant to be open to love even when love felt impossible. "You're right," Nathan admitted. "I have been hiding. And you were brave. I'm sorry I couldn't give you the response you deserved. You gave me honesty. That's something." Emily straightened up from her doorframe, pulling herself together visibly. "I should eat this before it gets cold. Thank you for dinner, Nathan, and for the conversation. I needed to hear that you see me, even if you can't feel what I feel. For what it's worth, I wish I could be braver. I wish I was the kind of person who could take what you're offering without being paralyzed by all the ways it could go wrong." Emily offered him a sad smile. "Maybe someday you will be. Maybe this is just bad timing, or maybe we're meant to be friends and nothing more, and I need to make peace with that. Either way, we're going to be okay. Both of us." She stepped back into her apartment, and Nathan wanted to say something more, something that would bridge the gap between them or at least make the distance feel less painful. But Emily closed the door gently before he could find the words, leaving him alone in the hallway with a growing sense that he was making a terrible mistake without understanding exactly what that mistake was. The weekend passed slowly. Saturday morning brought unexpected sunshine, the kind of late October warmth that felt like a gift before winter arrived in earnest. Nathan took Lily to the park, pushing her on swings and catching her at the bottom of the slide, trying to lose himself in the simple joy of his daughter's laughter. But his mind kept drifting to Emily, wondering if she was sleeping off her exhaustion, whether she'd eaten the dinner he'd brought, whether she was okay, or just pretending to be okay the way he'd been pretending for 3 years. On Sunday afternoon, Nathan's mother called from Florida. He settled onto the couch while Lily played in her room, preparing himself for the usual questions about work and whether he was eating properly, and if Lily needed anything. "How are you really doing, Nathan?" His mother's voice carried the particular concern that only mothers could manage, the tone that suggested she already knew the answer and was just waiting for him to admit it. "I'm fine, Mom. Work is steady, Lily's happy, everything's good." "That's what you always say, but I'm asking how you're doing, not how everything else is doing." Nathan leaned back against the couch cushions and stared at the ceiling. "Would you believe me if I said I'm confused?" "About what?" "About everything. About whether I'm being a good father or just a careful one. About whether I'm protecting Lily or just protecting myself. About whether I'm supposed to stay focused on being her dad or if I'm allowed to want something for myself too." His mother was quiet for a moment, and Nathan could picture her sitting in her Florida living room, probably looking out at the ocean, while she formulated her response. She'd always been thoughtful with her words, never rushing to advice or judgment. "Can I tell you something your father said to me once?" she asked finally. "This was years ago, when you were about Lily's age. He'd been working so much trying to provide for us, barely seeing you or your sister. I confronted him about it, and he said he was doing it for the family. And I told him that we didn't need a provider. We needed a person. We needed him present and whole, not just functioning." "What did he say?" "He cried. Your father actually cried, which shocked me because he'd been raised to believe men didn't do that. And then he said he'd forgotten how to be anything but a provider, that he'd gotten so focused on taking care of us that he'd lost track of taking care of himself. It took him a while, but he learned to find balance, to be both the father you needed and the man he needed to be." Nathan felt his throat tighten. "I don't know how to do that, Mom. I don't know how to be anything but Lily's dad right now." "Then maybe it's time to figure it out. Not for some woman or some idea of what your life should look like, but for yourself. Because Lily doesn't need a martyr for a father. She needs someone who shows her what it means to live fully, to take risks, to be brave enough to accept love when it's offered. What if I mess it up? What if I let someone in and it falls apart, and Lily's the one who gets hurt? What if you don't let someone in and Lily grows up thinking love is something you hide from?" His mother's voice was gentle but firm. "Nathan, honey, you can't protect her from everything. All you can do is show her how to navigate life with grace and courage and openness. And right now you're teaching her to play it safe. Is that really what you want her to learn?" After they hung up, Nathan sat on the couch for a long time thinking about his mother's words. She was right. He'd have been so focused on providing stability that he'd forgotten to model what it meant to actually live. He'd been going through motions, checking boxes, maintaining a life that functioned but didn't thrive. And Lily was watching, learning from his example, absorbing lessons about fear and safety, and whether love was something worth pursuing. Monday evening arrived with the kind of crystalline clarity that sometimes follows difficult realizations. Nathan helped Lily with her homework at the kitchen table, quizzed her on spelling words, made dinner while she chattered about playground drama and her friend Emma's birthday party next week. The routine soothed him, but it no longer felt quite as essential as it once had. There was space in his evening now, room for something beyond the comfortable predictability he'd clung to for so long. Around 8:30, after Lily was tucked into bed with her usual request for the door to be left slightly open, Nathan heard Emily's apartment door open and close. She'd be heading out for her Monday evening shift, probably already exhausted before it even started. He moved to his door without thinking, opening it just as she was locking hers. Emily turned at the sound, surprise registering on her tired face. She wore fresh scrubs with cartoon cats this time, her hair braided back from her face, her medical bag already weighing down her shoulder. "Hey," Nathan said, stepping into the hallway. "Heading to work?" "Yeah, night shift in pediatrics." Emily adjusted her bag strap, her expression carefully neutral. "Lily asleep?" "Just went down. Listen, I wanted to ask, when's your next day off?" Emily's eyebrows rose. "Wednesday afternoon through Thursday. Why?" "Because I'd like to talk. Actually talk, not just hallway conversations where we both pretend everything's normal. If you're willing." Something cautious flickered across Emily's face, hope tamped down by self-protection. "Talk about what?" "About me being an idiot. About me being scared. About whether friendship is really the only thing that makes sense, or if I've been lying to myself about what I actually feel." Nathan's heart was pounding, but the words felt right, felt true in a way few things had lately. "I can't promise you anything except honesty, but I think I owe you more than the half answers I've been giving." Emily studied him for a long moment, and Nathan could see her weighing risk against possibility, self-preservation against the vulnerability she'd already shown him. "Okay," she said finally. "Wednesday evening, come by around 7? I'll bring dinner. You don't have to, but I want to. Let me do this one thing right." Emily's smile was small but genuine, the first real smile she'd given him since her confession. "Okay, Wednesday at 7. Don't bring anything too heavy. I've been craving Thai food for about 3 weeks straight." "Thai food I can do." They stood in the hallway for another moment, something shifting between them like a door opening just slightly. letting in light and possibility and the faint promise of something that hadn't existed before. Then Emily checked her watch and grimaced. I need to go or I'll be late. See you Wednesday, Nathan. Be safe. She headed down the stairs and Nathan stood watching until she disappeared around the corner. Then he went back into his apartment and closed the door, leaning against it with his heart still racing. He'd taken a step, small, uncertain, but definitely forward. He'd acknowledged that there was something between them worth examining, worth risking the safety of his carefully constructed routine to explore. The question now was whether he'd have the courage to follow through on Wednesday, or whether fear would win out the way it had so many times before. Tuesday crawled past with agonizing slowness. Nathan went through work on autopilot, his mind constantly drifting to the conversation he'd promised Emily. What would he say? What was he actually feeling? Was it possible he'd been in love with her for months without recognizing it, too focused on his own isolation to see what was right in front of him? That evening, after Lily was asleep, Nathan did something he hadn't done since the divorce. He called Marcus. This better be important, Marcus answered, his voice carrying the mock irritation of someone who was actually glad to hear from a friend. I'm in the middle of destroying my cousin at Mario Kart. I think I'm in love with Emily, Nathan said without preamble. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, I'm sorry, what? Emily, my neighbor, the medical student who watched Lily last Saturday. I think I might be in love with her, and I have no idea what to do about it. Okay, backing up. What happened to Jennifer? I thought you two hit it off. We decided to be friends, but that's not important. Emily told me she's in love with me, and I panicked and basically told her I couldn't deal with it. But now I can't stop thinking about her, and I'm pretty sure I've been in love with her for months without realizing it because I'm an idiot who's been too scared to feel anything real. Marcus let out a low whistle. Man, when you finally decide to get back in the game, you don't mess around. Does Emily know how you feel? Not yet. We're supposed to talk on Wednesday. I'm terrified. Of course you're terrified. Love is terrifying. But here's the thing, Nathan. You're already in love with her. The scary part isn't figuring out your feelings. The scary part is deciding whether you're brave enough to do something about them. What if it doesn't work out? What if we try this and it falls apart, and then I've lost her as a friend and Lily's lost her too and everything becomes messy and complicated? What if it does work out? Marcus countered. What if you take the risk and find out that love is actually worth the complications? What if Lily gets to see her dad be happy and whole instead of just functional? What if you stop running from the best thing that's happened to you in years? Nathan was quiet, absorbing his friend's words. In the background, he could hear the sounds of Mario Kart and someone, probably Jennifer, shouting good-natured trash talk. I don't know how to do this, Nathan admitted quietly. I don't know how to open up to someone, how to let them into the life I've built for Lily. I don't know how to be vulnerable without feeling like I'm putting my daughter at risk. Then figure it out. Talk to Emily. Be honest about your fears. See if you can find a way forward that works for both of you. Marcus paused, his voice softening. Brother, you've been alone for 3 years. You've been an amazing father, but you've also been lonely as hell and too stubborn to admit it. Emily cares about you. She cares about Lily. That's not something to run from. That's something to run toward. After they hung up, Nathan sat with his phone in his hand, thinking about running towards something instead of away from it. His entire life since the divorce had been about creating distance, from pain, from risk, from the possibility of being hurt again. But distance was its own kind of hurt, its own kind of failure. Maybe it was time to close the gap, to take the chance, to believe that love could be built on something stronger than fear. Wednesday arrived with the weight of significance. Nathan left work early, picked up Lily from school, and spent the afternoon being as present as possible, helping with homework, playing board games, reading extra stories before dinner. He wanted these moments with her to feel complete and whole, wanted to give her the attention she deserved before his mind inevitably drifted to the conversation awaiting him later. At 5:30, Marcus showed up to stay with Lily. Nathan had called him that morning asking for the favor, and his friend had agreed immediately, apparently invested now in seeing how this would play out. Uncle Marcus! Lily threw herself at Marcus with the enthusiasm reserved for favorite adults who appeared too infrequently. Hey, troublemaker, I hear we're having a sleepover tonight. Think you can beat me at Candyland? I always beat you at Candyland. That's because you cheat. Do not. Nathan watched them with gratitude and a touch of anxiety. Bedtime is 8:30. No exceptions, even if she gives you puppy eyes. I know the drill, Dad. Go do what you need to do. Marcus gave him a meaningful look. And Nathan, be honest. With her and with yourself. Nathan changed into clean jeans and a sweater, spent too long checking his reflection in the mirror, then grabbed the takeout bag of Thai food he'd ordered earlier. His hands were shaking slightly as he locked his apartment door and crossed the hallway to Emily's. He stood there for a moment, gathering courage, then knocked before he could talk himself out of it. Emily opened the door wearing jeans and an oversized University of Colorado sweatshirt, her hair loose around her shoulders for once. She looked younger like this, softer, and Nathan felt his heart constrict with how much he wanted this conversation to go well. Thai food as promised, he said, holding up the bag. Perfect timing. I'm starving. Emily stepped back to let him in. Her apartment was smaller than his, a studio with a Murphy bed currently folded down and covered in textbooks. The space was organized chaos. Medical journals stacked on every surface, anatomy posters on the walls, a desk buried under notes and highlighters. But there were personal touches too. Photographs of people who must be her family, a collection of potted plants on the windowsill, a shelf of well-loved novels that suggested she read something besides medical textbooks when time allowed. They settled on her small couch with takeout containers spread between them. For a while they ate in comfortable silence, the weight of the impending conversation hovering but not quite descending. Finally, Emily set down her pad thai and turned to face him. So, you wanted to talk? Nathan put down his own food, wiping his hands on a napkin while he organized his thoughts. I've been thinking a lot about what you said last Saturday, about being in love with me. I'm aware that created some awkwardness. It created clarity. Nathan met her eyes, forcing himself to maintain the connection. For 3 years, I've been telling myself that I'm happy alone, that Lily is enough, that romantic relationships are complications I don't need. But the truth is I've been lonely, Emily. So lonely that I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to want connection with another person. Emily's expression was guarded, cautious. And now? Now I look back at the past 8 months and realize that all the best parts of my days involved you. Conversations in the hallway, you bringing over soup when Lily was sick, me making extra dinner because I knew you were probably surviving on vending machine food. These small moments that felt easy and right and like something I didn't want to lose. Nathan, let me finish, please. He took a breath, forcing himself to continue. When you told me you were in love with me, my first reaction was panic, because letting you in means risking everything I've built. It means possibly exposing Lily to heartbreak if things don't work out. It means being vulnerable in ways I swore I'd never be vulnerable again after Sarah left. Emily's eyes had filled with tears, but she didn't look away. I understand that. I never wanted to make things complicated for you. But here's what I figured out this week. You already are complicated for me, not because you've done anything wrong, but because somewhere along the way, I fell for you too. I just didn't let myself recognize it because recognition meant having to make a choice. The words hung in the air between them. Emily sat very still, as if afraid that moving might shatter whatever fragile thing was forming in this moment. You fell for me? Her voice was barely above a whisper. I think I've been falling for you since the day you moved in and immediately locked yourself out of your apartment. I think every conversation we've had, every small kindness we've exchanged, every time I've heard you singing badly through the walls while you studied, I think all of it has been slowly building into something I was too scared to acknowledge. A tear slipped down Emily's cheek. So what are you saying? I'm saying I want to try. I'm saying I'm terrified and I don't know how to do this, and I'm going to mess up constantly because I haven't dated anyone seriously in over a decade. But I'm saying that losing you feels worse than any risk involved in letting you in. Emily reached out and took his hand, her fingers trembling slightly as they intertwined with his. I want to try too. But Nathan, we need to be honest about what this means. I'm not just dating you, I'm potentially becoming part of Lily's life in a different way. That's huge. That's not something we can take lightly. I know. That's what scares me most. Nathan squeezed her hand, drawing strength from the contact. If this was just about me, I'd take the risk without hesitation. But Lily's already lost her mother in a real way. If I bring you into her life as something more than the neighbor she loves, and then things don't work out between us, she loses you too. I can't do that to her without being absolutely certain we're doing this for the right reasons. So what are the right reasons? Emily shifted closer on the couch, her green eyes searching his face. Because I need to know what you want from this, Nathan. I need to know if you're willing to actually build something real or if you're just trying to convince yourself you can. The question cut straight to the heart of his uncertainty. Nathan thought about it carefully, weighing his words before speaking. I want someone who understands that Lily comes first, but doesn't resent that. I want someone who can be patient while I figure out how to be a father and a partner at the same time. I want someone I can trust with my daughter's heart and my own. And when I think about who that person might be, all I see is you. Emily's breath caught. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me, and it's completely terrifying. Welcome to my world. Nathan managed a small smile. I'm terrified every single day. But my mom said something that stuck with me. She said Lily doesn't need a martyr for a father. She needs someone who shows her what it means to live fully. And I've been so focused on keeping her safe that I forgot to show her what brave looks like. Your mom sounds wise. She has her moments. Nathan traced small circles on the back of Emily's hand with his thumb, marveling at how natural the touch felt. So here's what I'm thinking. We take this slow. We don't tell Lily anything is different between us until we're both sure this is something that can work. We figure out how to be together in a way that protects her while still giving us room to see if this is real. How slow are we talking? Emily asked. Because I've already been in love with you for months. I'm not sure I can go much slower without losing my mind. Slow enough that we're careful. Fast enough that we're actually moving forward. Nathan brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. I don't have all the answers, Em, but I know I want to figure them out with you. Emily leaned forward and rested her forehead against his, their breath mingling in the small space between them. I'm scared too, you know. What if I'm not good at this? What if I mess up with Lily, or say the wrong thing, or can't handle the reality of dating someone with a child? What if I'm not enough? You're already enough. You've been enough since the day you moved in and immediately asked to borrow eggs because you'd forgotten to buy groceries. Nathan pulled back slightly so he could see her face. But Em, you need to know that dating me means dating my life, not just me. It means understanding that sometimes I'll cancel plans because Lily's sick. It means accepting that my time and attention are divided. It means being okay with being third in line after a 6-year-old's needs and a demanding job. I'm a medical student working 80-hour weeks. I understand demanding schedules and last-minute changes. Emily's smile was soft but determined, and I already love Lily. That's not something I'm worried about. What worries me is whether you'll actually let me in or if you'll keep me at arm's length while pretending we're moving forward. The observation landed with uncomfortable accuracy. Nathan recognized his own tendency to maintain control through distance, to protect himself by never fully committing. It was what had ultimately pushed Sarah away, his inability to be vulnerable, to share the messy parts of himself along with the functional ones. I'll try, he said honestly. I can't promise I won't fall back into old patterns, but I'll try to be open with you, to let you see the parts of me that aren't just Lily's dad or the reliable electrical technician, to trust you with the complicated stuff. That's all I'm asking. Emily reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle against his cheek. We're both going into this scared and uncertain, but at least we're doing it together. Nathan turned his head and kissed her palm, feeling the rightness of the moment settle into his bones. This wasn't the dramatic, sweeping romance of movies or novels. It was quiet and careful and built on months of friendship and small kindnesses. But maybe that was exactly what made it worth pursuing. Not the intensity of new passion, but the solid foundation of genuine care. Can I kiss you? He asked quietly, wanting her permission even though she was still touching his face. I thought you'd never ask. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to change her mind, to pull back, to decide this was too much too fast. But Emily met him halfway, her lips soft against his, the kiss gentle and exploratory rather than demanding. It tasted like possibility and Thai food and the particular relief that comes from finally acknowledging something you've been avoiding for too long. When they pulled apart, Nathan rested his forehead against hers again, both of them breathing slightly harder. "That was nice," Emily whispered. "Yeah." Nathan couldn't help smiling. It really was. They spent the rest of the evening on her couch, talking about everything and nothing, sharing the details of their lives that had somehow never come up in casual hallway conversations. Emily told him about growing up in Portland with 3 older brothers who'd simultaneously protected and tormented her. Nathan shared stories about his own childhood in Colorado, about his father's steady presence and his mother's fierce love. They talked about Sarah's departure and the particular loneliness of being left behind, about Emily's first semester of medical school when she'd seriously considered quitting because the workload felt impossible. "I called my dad at 2 in the morning, completely convinced I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor," Emily said, her head resting on Nathan's shoulder now, comfortable and close. "I was crying so hard I could barely speak. And you know what he said?" "What?" "He said, being smart enough isn't the question. The question is whether you care enough to keep going when things get hard." And I realized he was right. Intelligence matters, but caring matters more. The best doctors aren't always the smartest ones. They're the ones who remember that patients are people, not just problems to solve. Nathan pressed a kiss to the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, something floral and clean. "That's why you're going to be an incredible doctor. You see people, not just symptoms." "I hope so. Some days I feel like I'm just stumbling through, hoping I don't hurt anyone while I figure out what I'm doing." "Welcome to parenthood. That's basically my entire existence." Emily laughed, the sound warm against his chest. "We're quite a pair, aren't we? Both terrified we're going to mess up the things that matter most." "At least we can be terrified together." Nathan glanced at his phone and saw it was nearly 11. He should get back to check on Lily and let Marcus go home. But leaving felt wrong, like stepping away from something fragile that needed protection and attention to survive. Emily must have sensed his hesitation because she sat up and gave him a gentle smile. "Go check on Lily. Make sure Marcus hasn't taught her any bad habits." "He definitely has. That man has no concept of appropriate bedtime protocols." "Then you better get over there before she's convinced bedtime is just a suggestion." Emily walked him to the door, her hand still holding his. "Nathan, thank you for being brave enough to try this. I know it's not easy for you. Thank you for being patient with my fear, and for not giving up on me when I was being an idiot. Well, you're my favorite idiot." She kissed him once more, brief and sweet. "Text me tomorrow?" "Definitely." Nathan crossed the hallway feeling lighter than he had in months, maybe years. When he opened his apartment door, he found Marcus sprawled on the couch watching late-night television with the volume low. "She asleep?" Nathan asked quietly. "Out cold by 8:45. We played 3 rounds of Candyland, read 4 books, and she tried to negotiate for a pet hamster. I told her she'd have to take that up with you." Marcus sat up and studied Nathan's face with a knowing smile. "So, how'd it go?" "We're going to try, slowly, carefully, but we're going to try." "Good. It's about time." Marcus stood and grabbed his jacket from the chair. "She's a good woman, Nathan. Don't overthink this to death. Sometimes you just have to trust that things will work out." After Marcus left, Nathan checked on Lily. She'd kicked off her blankets as usual, and he tucked them back around her gently. Then he stood in his darkened living room looking at the thin strip of light visible under Emily's door across the hall. Everything had shifted in the course of a single evening. The careful distance he'd maintained, the walls he'd built to protect himself and his daughter, the routine that had felt so essential, all of it suddenly seemed less important than the possibility of building something real with someone who already understood what mattered most. His phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Still can't quite believe this is happening. Sleep well, Nathan." He typed back, "Me either, but I'm glad it is. Good night, Em." The next few weeks unfolded with a kind of careful choreography as Nathan and Emily learned to navigate their new relationship while maintaining normalcy for Lily. They stole moments together when they could, coffee dates at 5:30 in the morning before Nathan had to get Lily ready for school, late-night conversations in the hallway after his daughter was asleep, quick kisses when they passed each other in the parking lot. It felt like being a teenager again, this sneaking around, except they weren't hiding from parents, but from a 6-year-old who would definitely ask questions if she noticed the shift in dynamics. Emily was patient with Nathan's need for discretion, understanding his desire to be certain before changing Lily's understanding of their relationship. But Nathan could see moments when the hiding wore on her, when she'd have to maintain careful distance during conversations with Lily present, when she couldn't reach for his hand the way she obviously wanted to, when the wall between their apartments felt like a barrier rather than just a boundary. "I hate this part," Emily admitted one evening as they sat on her couch after Lily was asleep. It had been 3 weeks since their first real conversation, 3 weeks of stolen moments and careful affection. "I hate pretending we're just neighbors when I want to hold your hand in front of her. I hate editing myself around Lily when she's one of my favorite people." Nathan pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I know. I hate it too. But I need to be sure, Em. I need to know we're stable before we change what Lily understands about us. And what would make you sure? What's the threshold we need to cross?" It was a fair question, and Nathan had been wrestling with it himself. When would he know? How many dates? How many conversations? How much time had to pass before he could trust that this was real and lasting? The truth was, there was no formula, no clear answer. At some point, he'd have to take a leap of faith. "I think I need to see us handle conflict," Nathan said slowly, working through his thoughts as he spoke. "Right now, everything is easy because we're still in the honeymoon phase. But what happens when we disagree about something important? What happens when your schedule conflicts with my time with Lily? What happens when the reality of dating a single parent stops being sweet and starts being inconvenient?" Emily was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing patterns on his arm. "You're waiting for me to prove I won't leave." "No." "Yes. Maybe." Nathan sighed, frustrated with himself. "I'm sorry. I know that's not fair to you. You're not Sarah. But I can't stop thinking about how excited Lily was when Sarah and I first got together. How much she'll invest if we tell her we're dating, and how destroyed she'll be if this doesn't work out." "Nathan, look at me." Emily sat up and turned to face him directly. "I understand your fear, I really do. But at some point you're going to have to trust me. Not because I've proven I'm perfect, or because we've been together for some arbitrary amount of time, but because relationships require trust even when it's scary, especially when it's scary. I do trust you." "Then show me. Not by telling Lily before you're ready. I'm not asking for that. But stop waiting for me to fail. Stop looking for reasons this won't work. Start believing that maybe, just maybe, I'm in this for real." Her words hit him hard because they were true. He had been waiting for failure, expecting disappointment, anticipating the moment when Emily would realize that dating him was more trouble than it was worth. It was easier to expect the worst than to hope for the best and risk being devastated when hope proved unfounded. "You're right," Nathan admitted quietly. "I've been so focused on protecting Lily that I haven't given us a real chance. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Just try." Emily took his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Try to believe that I love you. Try to believe that Lily being your priority doesn't make you less lovable. It makes you more. Try to believe that this can work." Nathan kissed her then, pouring into the contact all the hope and fear and tentative belief he couldn't quite put into words. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers in the gesture that had become their signature. "I'll try," he promised, "starting now." The opportunity to test that promise came sooner than Nathan expected. 2 days later, Lily woke up with a fever and a cough that sounded like it had migrated from her chest. Nathan called in sick to work and spent the day administering medicine, pushing fluids, and reading stories to his miserable daughter. By evening, her fever had spiked to 103, and Nathan made the decision to take her to urgent care. He was carrying Lily to his car. She was too exhausted to walk when Emily's car pulled into the parking lot. She took one look at them and immediately parked, jumping out with her medical bag in hand. "What's wrong?" she asked, already in doctor mode. "Fever of 103, bad cough. I'm taking her to urgent care." Emily moved to Lily and gently pressed her hand to the girl's forehead, her professional assessment immediate and thorough. How long has she been like this? Fever started this morning, got worse through the day. Let me listen to her lungs. Emily pulled out her stethoscope, and Lily was too sick to even be curious about the medical equipment. After a moment, Emily straightened up with a concerned expression. She's wheezing. Could be bronchitis or early pneumonia. You're right to take her in. Want me to come with you? Nathan's first instinct was to say no, that he could handle this alone the way he'd handled everything else. But Lily looked so small and sick in his arms, and Emily's offer came from genuine care rather than obligation. Besides, having a medical student along might actually be helpful. Yeah, that would be good. They piled into Nathan's car, Emily in the back seat with Lily's head resting on her lap while Nathan drove to the nearest urgent care facility. During the drive, Emily kept up a gentle stream of conversation with Lily, distracting her from feeling miserable by asking about school and friends and what stories she wanted to hear when she felt better. Miss Emily, why are you here? Lily asked at one point, her voice hoarse and tired. Because your dad's my friend, and friends help each other when things are hard. Plus, I know some stuff about medicine that might be useful. Are you going to be my doctor? No, sweetie, I'm still learning to be a doctor, but I'll stay with you and your dad until we know you're going to be okay. The urgent care wait was long and uncomfortable. Nathan filled out paperwork while Emily sat with Lily, keeping her calm and distracted. When they were finally called back, Emily asked intelligent questions of the attending physician, translated medical jargon for Nathan, and advocated for Lily in ways that made Nathan realize how out of his depth he usually felt in medical settings. The diagnosis was bronchitis, treatable with antibiotics and rest. By the time they made it back to the apartment complex at nearly 11 at night, Lily was medicated and already feeling slightly better. Nathan carried her upstairs while Emily grabbed the pharmacy bags, and they worked together to get Lily settled into bed with medicine administered and cool cloths ready in case the fever spiked again. Thank you, Nathan said once they were back in his living room, his voice rough with exhaustion and emotion. I couldn't have done that alone. Or I could have, but it would have been so much harder. Emily stepped into his space and wrapped her arms around him, offering comfort he hadn't realized he desperately needed. You don't have to do things alone anymore. That's what this is, letting someone help carry the weight. Nathan held her tightly, breathing in her presence and allowing himself to lean on her strength. This was what partnership looked like. Not grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but showing up when things were hard, offering support without being asked, staying present even when the situation was messy and inconvenient. Emily had proven something tonight that no amount of careful dating could have demonstrated, that she was willing to be there not just for the easy moments, but for the difficult ones too. Stay, he said quietly, the word barely above a whisper. Just for a little while. I don't want to be alone right now. Okay. They moved to the couch, and Nathan pulled Emily close, her head resting on his chest while his hand ran through her hair. The television played quietly in the background, some late-night show neither of them was really watching. Every 15 minutes, Nathan got up to check on Lily, and each time he returned, Emily was waiting for him with patient understanding. This is what it would be like, Nathan said during one of his returns from Lily's room. If we do this for real, this is what you're signing up for. Interrupted sleep, sick kids, plans that get canceled at the last minute. This is the reality of my life. I know, and I'm still here. Emily sat up and took his hand, her expression serious. Nathan, I need you to understand something. I'm not interested in dating some idealized version of you that doesn't include Lily or the complications of single parenthood. I'm interested in your real life, messy parts and all. If I wasn't, I would have walked away already. But what about later? What about when this stops being new and becomes just life? What about when you want to go out with friends but I can't find a babysitter? What about when you're exhausted from the hospital and I'm exhausted from parenting and neither of us has anything left to give each other? Then we'll figure it out. Together. Emily squeezed his hand. You keep waiting for me to reach my limit, to decide this is too much. But Nathan, I already know what I'm choosing. I knew it the first time I heard you singing Disney songs with Lily through the wall. I knew it when you brought me soup when I was sick, even though we barely knew each other. I knew it every single time I watched you put your daughter first without hesitation. That's not something I'm trying to compete with. That's something I admire about you." Nathan felt something crack open in his chest, some tightly held fear loosening its grip. "I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to disappoint you sometimes. And I'm going to mess up too. I'm going to work too many hours and be too tired and probably say the wrong thing when you need support. We're both human. We're both going to fail sometimes. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try." They sat together in the quiet apartment, the only sounds Lily's occasional cough from the bedroom and the low murmur of the television. Nathan felt exhausted, but also strangely peaceful, as if something essential had shifted into place. Emily had seen him at his most stressed and vulnerable, had witnessed the reality of his life without filters or pretense, and she was still here. She was still choosing this, choosing him, choosing the complicated package deal he represented. Around 1 in the morning, Nathan walked Emily to her door. She had an early shift at the hospital in just a few hours, and he needed to get some sleep before Lily woke up needing attention. "Text me tomorrow with updates on how she's doing," Emily said, lingering in her doorway. "I will. And Em? Thank you for everything tonight. That's what people do when they love each other. They show up." She kissed him softly, then pulled back with a small smile. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." Nathan returned to his apartment and checked on Lily one more time. Her fever had broken, and she was sleeping peacefully. He stood in her doorway, watching her breathe, thinking about Emily's words. That's what people do when they love each other. They show up. It was such a simple concept, but Nathan realized he'd spent 3 years believing he had to show up alone, that accepting help was a weakness rather than a strength. Maybe it was time to let someone share the load. Maybe it was time to trust that loving someone didn't mean losing himself or failing his daughter. Maybe it was time to believe that family could expand rather than fracture, that opening his heart didn't have to mean risking everything he'd built. The next 2 weeks passed with Lily recovering from her bronchitis and Nathan's relationship with Emily deepening in ways that felt both natural and profound. They still hadn't told Lily anything had changed, but Nathan found himself less anxious about that conversation and more certain that when the time came, it would be right. Emily integrated into their lives more seamlessly than Nathan had imagined possible. She brought soup when Lily was recovering, helped with homework on evenings when she wasn't at the hospital, joined them for a movie night that felt so natural, Lily didn't even comment on how normal it seemed to have Miss Emily sitting on the couch between her and her father. "I like when Miss Emily hangs out with us," Lily said one evening after Emily had left for a night shift. They were doing the bedtime routine, Nathan tucking blankets around his daughter while she clutched her stuffed bunny. "Yeah? Why's that?" "Because she's nice, and she makes you smile more." Lily's observation was delivered with the casual honesty of childhood, but it struck Nathan deeply. "You didn't smile as much before." "Did I not?" "Not really. You smiled at me, but not at other stuff. Now you smile at other stuff too." Lily yawned, her eyes already drooping. "I think Miss Emily makes you happy." Nathan pressed a kiss to her forehead, his heart full of love and the growing certainty that his daughter deserved to see him happy, that modeling joy was just as important as modeling responsibility. "She does make me happy. Is that okay with you?" "Uh-huh. Can she come to my birthday party?" "We'll see, sweetheart. Now close those eyes. Morning comes faster when you sleep." "Daddy?" "Yeah, Lily B. I love you. I love you too. More than anything in the whole world." After Lily was asleep, Nathan sat on his couch and pulled out his phone. He typed a message to Emily. "Lily asked if you make me happy. I said yes. She asked if you can come to her birthday party next month. I said we'll see. But Em, I think it's time. I think I'm ready to tell her about us. If you're still willing to take that leap with me." Emily's response came within minutes. "I've been ready since the beginning. Just say when." Nathan looked around his apartment, at the coloring books scattered on the coffee table, at Lily's backpack by the door, at the framed pictures documenting their small family's journey through the past 3 years. This was his life, built piece by piece from the wreckage of divorce and abandonment. It was small and simple and entirely focused on one little girl who deserved everything good the world had to offer. But maybe it could be bigger. Maybe there was room for more than just survival and routine. Maybe love didn't have to mean risk and loss. Maybe sometimes it meant addition, expansion, the beautiful complication of letting someone new into the spaces you'd protected for so long. He typed back to Emily, "Soon, let's do this soon." The question of when and how to tell Lily consumed Nathan's thoughts over the following days. He discussed it with Emily during their late-night conversations, weighing different approaches and trying to anticipate his daughter's reaction. They could sit her down formally, treat it like an announcement that required her approval. Or they could let it happen naturally, allow Lily to notice the shift in their relationship and ask questions on her own terms. Neither option felt entirely right, and Nathan found himself paralyzed by the weight of getting this moment perfect. "You're overthinking this," Emily said one evening as they sat in her apartment sharing takeout after Lily had gone to bed. "Kids are perceptive. She probably already knows something has changed between us." "She's 6. How would she know?" "Because you look at me differently now. Because we're more careful about not touching in front of her, which is actually more obvious than if we were just natural about it. Because children notice everything, especially changes in their parents." Emily set down her chopsticks and gave him a pointed look. "You're acting like this is some massive revelation that will shatter her world. But Nathan, we're not strangers. I've been part of her life for almost a year. This is just giving a name to something that already exists." Nathan wanted to believe that. Wanted to trust that the transition would be as simple as Emily made it sound. But he kept thinking about the morning Sarah left, about the confusion on 3-year-old Lily's face when she'd asked where Mommy was, and Nathan had fumbled through an explanation about Mommy needing to go away for a while. That while had stretched into years, and Lily had learned not to ask when Mommy was coming back. What if telling her about Emily somehow brought back that abandonment, made her fear that people she loved would always leave? "What if she thinks you're trying to replace Sarah?" Nathan asked quietly. "What if she resents you for it?" "Then we'll talk to her about it. We'll reassure her that I'm not trying to be her mother, that no one can replace Sarah no matter how absent she's been. We'll let her set the pace for what our relationship looks like." Emily reached across the table and took his hand. "But Nathan, you can't protect her from every possible negative emotion. Part of growing up is learning to navigate complicated feelings. Your job isn't to prevent her from ever being confused or upset. Your job is to help her process those feelings when they come up." "When did you get so wise about parenting? You don't even have kids." "I have 3 nephews and a lot of experience watching my brothers navigate co-parenting after divorces. Plus, medical school teaches you that you can't control outcomes. You can only create the best conditions possible and hope things work out." Emily squeezed his hand gently. "We're creating good conditions, Nathan. We're being thoughtful and careful. We love each other, and we both love Lily. That's a pretty solid foundation." That weekend, Nathan decided to test the waters without making any formal announcements. He invited Emily to join them for their Saturday morning routine, pancakes and a trip to the park. It was something they'd done casually before, but this time Nathan allowed himself to be more natural, to let his affection for Emily show in small ways. He sat closer to her at breakfast, laughed more freely at her jokes, touched her shoulder when passing by in the kitchen. Lily noticed immediately. Nathan could see the wheels turning in her 6-year-old brain as she watched them interact, her eyes moving between her father and Emily with dawning curiosity. But she didn't say anything, just ate her pancakes and chattered about wanting to go on the swings first when they got to the park. At the park, Emily pushed Lily on the swings while Nathan stood nearby watching them. His daughter's laughter rang out clear and bright, and Emily's face was lit with genuine joy as she exaggerated her pushes and made silly comments about Lily flying to the moon. They looked right together, Nathan thought. They looked like family. "Higher, Miss Emily, push me higher." "Any higher and you'll need a pilot's license," Emily called back, but she pushed harder anyway, and Lily shrieked with delight. Nathan pulled out his phone and snapped a picture without thinking. Lily mid-swing with her hair streaming behind her, Emily grinning in the background. It was a moment of pure happiness, uncomplicated and real, and Nathan wanted to preserve it. He looked at the photo on his screen and realized this was what he wanted more of. Not grand gestures or perfect moments, but simple joy shared with people he loved. After the swings, they walked to the duck pond. Lily ran ahead with the bag of breadcrumbs they'd brought, leaving Nathan and Emily trailing behind. Emily slipped her hand into his, and for a moment Nathan tensed, aware of Lily just yards ahead. But his daughter was too focused on the ducks to notice, and gradually Nathan relaxed into the contact. "This feels normal," Emily said quietly. "The the three of us together like this. It feels right. It does. Nathan squeezed her hand. I've been so worried about changing her world, but maybe I've been changing it all along without realizing it. Maybe you've been part of our family for longer than I wanted to admit. They reached the pond where Lily was already tossing bread to eager ducks. She turned and waved at them, her face bright with excitement. Daddy, look! There's a baby duck. It's so tiny. Nathan and Emily joined her at the pond's edge, and they spent the next 20 minutes watching Lily interact with the ducks, offering her facts about the different species and laughing at her running commentary about their personalities. It was such an ordinary afternoon, the kind of Saturday Nathan had experienced hundreds of times with his daughter. But Emily's presence transformed it into something richer, fuller, like a photograph that had been black and white suddenly developing color. On the drive home, Lily sat in the back seat humming to herself, tired but content. Emily rode in the passenger seat, her hand resting on the console where Nathan could reach it at stoplights. Everything felt suspended in possibility, like they were all holding their breath waiting for something significant to shift. That shift came as they pulled into the apartment complex parking lot. Lily had gone quiet, and when Nathan glanced in the rearview mirror, he saw her staring at the back of Emily's head with an expression of intense concentration. Miss Emily? Lily's voice was small and uncertain. Yes, sweetie. Are you Daddy's girlfriend? The question hung in the car like a held note. Nathan's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he pulled into his parking space and put the car in park. He met Emily's eyes briefly. She gave him an encouraging nod, then turned in his seat to look at his daughter. What makes you ask that, Lily B? Lily picked at the edge of her car seat, suddenly shy. Emma at school says when grown-ups hold hands and smile at each other a lot, it means they're boyfriend and girlfriend. And you and Miss Emily hold hands sometimes. I saw you at the park. Nathan took a breath, understanding that this was the moment he'd been both anticipating and dreading. There was no going back from here, no way to deflect or delay. Lily had asked the question directly, and she deserved an honest answer. Can we talk about this inside? Nathan asked gently. I think this is an important conversation to have where we're comfortable. Lily nodded solemnly, and they all got out of the car. The walk up to the apartment felt longer than usual, each step weighted with significance. Once inside, Nathan guided Lily to the couch and sat beside her while Emily took the chair across from them, giving them space but remaining present. You're right, Nathan said, taking Lily's small hands in his. Emily and I are more than just friends. We care about each other in a special way, and we wanted to tell you about it when the time was right. Lily's eyes were huge and serious. So she is your girlfriend? Yes, she is. How do you feel about that? Lily was quiet for a long moment, processing. Nathan could see the emotions playing across her face. Surprise, curiosity, something that might have been worry. Finally, she looked past him to Emily. Miss Emily, do you love my daddy? Emily leaned forward in her chair, meeting Lily's eyes with complete honesty. I do love your daddy. Very much. And do you love me too? I love you too, Lily. I have since the first time we made cookies together, and you told me all about your unicorn collection. You're one of my favorite people in the whole world. Lily turned back to Nathan, her small forehead creased with thought. Is Miss Emily going to be my new mommy? Nathan felt his heart constrict. This was the question he'd feared most, the complication he'd tried to prepare for but didn't know how to navigate. No, sweetheart. Emily isn't trying to be your mommy. You have a mommy, even if she's not here very much. Emily is just Emily, someone who cares about both of us and wants to spend time with us. But if you love each other, doesn't that mean she'll live here and be my mommy? Emily stood and moved to kneel in front of Lily, putting herself at eye level with the girl. Lily, I want you to understand something really important. I'm not trying to take anyone's place. Your dad is the most important person in your life, and you're the most important person in his life. I'm just hoping there's room for me too. Not as a replacement for anybody, but as someone who gets to be part of your family. What if I don't want you to be part of our family? The question came out small and scared, and Nathan saw Emily flinch slightly before recovering her composure. Then we'll respect that, Emily said gently. Your feelings matter, Lily, If you need time to get used to this idea, or if you're worried about things changing, that's completely okay. We can talk about it as much as you need to. Lily looked between Emily and Nathan, her small face struggling with emotions too big for her to fully articulate. Things are good now, just me and Daddy. What if adding Miss Emily makes everything different? Nathan pulled Lily onto his lap, holding her close. Some things will be different, Lily B, but different doesn't always mean bad. Remember when we moved to this apartment and you were scared because it wasn't our old house? But then you made new friends and had your own room, and it turned out okay? I guess. This is kind of like that. We're making room for something new, but all the good stuff. You and me, our routines, our special time together, that doesn't go away. It just expands to include someone else who cares about us. Nathan pressed a kiss to the top of her head. And if at any point you feel like things aren't working or you're unhappy, you can tell me. Your feelings are the most important thing to me. Always. Lily was quiet, nestled against her father's chest. Nathan could feel her breathing, could sense her working through this information in whatever way her 6-year-old mind processed big changes. Emily remained kneeling on the floor, patient and present, not pushing but not retreating either. Can I think about it? Lily asked finally. Of course you can, Nathan said. Take all the time you need. And Miss Emily will still be my friend even if I don't want her to be Daddy's girlfriend? Emily's smile was gentle, despite the pain Nathan could see in her eyes. I'll always be your friend, Lily. No matter what. That's a promise. Lily nodded and slipped off Nathan's lap. I'm going to go play in my room now. Is that okay? That's fine, sweetheart. They watched Lily disappear down the hallway to her bedroom, heard the door close softly behind her. The silence that followed felt heavy and complicated. Nathan looked at Emily, still kneeling on the floor, and saw her struggling to maintain her composure. That went well, Emily said, but her voice wavered slightly. All things considered. Nathan moved to join her on the floor, pulling her into his arms. I'm sorry. I knew she might need time to adjust, but hearing her say she might not want you as part of our family, that had to hurt. It did. But she's allowed to feel uncertain. She's allowed to be protective of what she has with you. Emily pulled back and wiped at her eyes, frustrated with her own tears. I just hope she comes around. I hope she sees that I'm not trying to take anything from her, just add to what already exists. She will. She just needs time to process. Nathan hoped he sounded more confident than he felt. Lily's a sensitive kid. Big changes scare her, but she's also incredibly loving and open once she feels safe with something new. They sat together on the living room floor, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the carpet. Nathan could hear Lily moving around in her room, the soft sounds of toys being rearranged, and her voice talking quietly to her stuffed animals. She was processing in her own way, working through her feelings in the private space of childhood play. What if she doesn't come around? Emily asked quietly. What if she decides she can't accept this? Nathan took her face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. Then we'll figure it out. But Em, I'm not giving up on us just because this is complicated. I'm not walking away because my daughter needs time to adjust. We'll be patient. We'll go slow. We'll let Lily set the pace, but we're in this together. Promise? Promise. Emily leaned in and kissed him, the contact brief but grounding. Then she stood and gathered her things. I should go. Give Lily some space and let you two have dinner together. Normal routine might help her feel more settled. Will you be okay? I'll be fine. Just text me later and let me know how she's doing. After Emily left, Nathan ordered pizza and set about preparing for a normal Saturday evening. He called Lily out for dinner, and she emerged from her room carrying her stuffed bunny and looking thoughtful. They ate pizza in front of the television, watching a Disney movie, the familiar ritual soothing in its ordinariness. Lily didn't mention Emily or their earlier conversation, and Nathan didn't push, content to let her have the space she needed. During bath time, as Lily played with her bath toys and Nathan sat on the bathroom floor keeping her company, she finally spoke up. Daddy, do you like Miss Emily more than you like me? Nathan's heart clenched. Lily, look at me. He waited until she turned her attention from her toys to meet his eyes. I love you more than anything or anyone in the entire universe. You are the most important person in my life, and that will never change. The way I care about Emily is different from the way I love you. It's not more or less, just different. Do you understand? I think so. Lily poured water from one cup to another, her expression uncertain. Emma at school says her dad has a new girlfriend, and now he doesn't have time for Emma anymore. What if that happens with us? That's not going to happen. You and I will always have our special time together. Always. Nathan reached out and tucked a wet strand of hair behind her ear. Emily being in my life doesn't take anything away from you. In fact, she cares about you so much that she wants to make sure you're happy and comfortable with everything. She does? She does. That's why she said you could take your time thinking about it. She doesn't want to push you into anything you're not ready for. Lily was quiet for a moment, then asked in a small voice, "What if I like having Miss Emily around sometimes, but also want it to just be us sometimes?" That's completely okay. We can have family time with Emily and also have special daddy-daughter time that's just us. Nothing has to be all or nothing. Nathan felt relief wash through him. This was progress, Lily considering possibilities rather than rejecting the idea entirely. Okay. Lily returned to her bath toys with a lighter energy. Can we have pancakes again next Saturday with Miss Emily? If you want to, absolutely. I want to, but can we also go to the movies, just us on Sunday? I want to see the new princess movie. It's a date, Lily B. Just you and me and all the popcorn we can eat. Lily grinned, some of the tension leaving her small shoulders. Nathan helped her out of the bath and through the rest of the bedtime routine, feeling cautiously optimistic about how the day had unfolded. It hadn't been perfect, but it had been honest. Lily knew the truth now, and she was beginning to imagine what their expanded family might look like. After Lily was asleep, Nathan texted Emily with an update. She called immediately, and he stepped into the hallway so their conversation wouldn't wake his daughter. "How is she really?" Emily asked without preamble. "She's processing. She asked if I loved you more than I love her, which broke my heart. But by the end of the night, she was asking about having pancakes with you next Saturday and also wanting daddy-daughter movie time on Sunday. I think she's trying to figure out how to make room for you while still protecting what she has with me. That's completely reasonable. I'm just glad she's not shutting the door completely." Emily sounded tired but hopeful. "Nathan, I meant what I said today. I'll respect whatever boundaries Lily needs. If she wants to keep things mostly the same with occasional family activities, I can work with that. I know you will. That's one of the reasons I love you." The words came easily now, the declaration no longer frightening. "We're going to figure this out, Em. It might take time, but we'll get there." They talked for another 20 minutes. About Lily's concerns, about pacing their relationship to accommodate a 6-year-old's need for stability, about the specific fears children of divorce carried that adults sometimes forgot to consider. By the time they hung up, Nathan felt grounded again, certain that they were approaching this challenge with the care and thoughtfulness it deserved. The following weeks brought a delicate balance as they navigated their new normal. Emily joined them for breakfast on Saturday mornings, but she left before they started the rest of their day, giving Nathan and Lily their usual father-daughter time. She came to dinner on Wednesday evenings when her hospital schedule allowed, but she made sure to leave before Lily's bedtime so their routine remained unchanged. She was present, but not overwhelming, adding to their lives without disrupting the foundation Nathan had built. Slowly, Nathan watched Lily's guardedness soften. She started asking when Miss Emily was coming over. She requested that Emily help with a school project about the human body, trusting her medical expertise. She began including Emily in her drawings of family, placing her figure slightly apart from Nathan and Lily, but still clearly part of the picture. One evening, about 3 weeks after their conversation, Lily was coloring at the kitchen table while Nathan prepared dinner, and Emily studied her medical textbooks on the couch. It was a scene of comfortable domesticity, the three of them existing in the same space with easy familiarity. Nathan was chopping vegetables when Lily's voice cut through the quiet. "Miss Emily, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetie." "If you're Daddy's girlfriend, does that mean you're going to get married?" Nathan's knife stilled on the cutting board. He glanced over at Emily, who'd set down her textbook and was giving Lily her full attention. "I don't know," Emily answered honestly. "Your dad and I care about each other a lot, but we're taking things slowly. Marriage is something grown-ups think about very carefully. Why do you ask? Emma's dad got married again, and now Emma has a stepmom. I was wondering if that's what's going to happen with us. Nathan moved to the table and sat down beside his daughter. Lily, Emily, and I aren't thinking about marriage right now. We're just enjoying spending time together and seeing how things go. If that ever changes, you'll be the first person we talk to about it, okay? Okay? Lily went back to her coloring, apparently satisfied with the answer, but after a moment she added quietly, I think it would be okay if you got married someday. Miss Emily is nice, and she makes good cookies. Nathan felt his throat tighten with emotion. He caught Emily's eye across the room and saw tears glistening in her eyes too. This was Lily's version of acceptance, her 6-year-old way of saying she was ready to imagine a future that included Emily in a permanent way. Well, good cookies are definitely an important quality, Nathan managed, his voice rough with feeling. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're happy with how things are right now. Me too, Lily said simply, selecting a purple crayon for her drawing. I like it when Miss Emily is here. It's nice having 3 people instead of just 2. That evening, after Lily was asleep and Emily was preparing to leave for a night shift, Nathan walked her to her apartment door. They stood in the hallway, unwilling to say goodbye despite Emily's impending lateness for work. She's accepting this, Emily said wonderingly. She's actually making room for me. She is. Because you've been patient with her and respected her boundaries and shown her that you're not trying to change everything she knows. Nathan pulled Emily close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You're doing everything right, Em. We're doing everything right. This is a team effort. She smiled up at him. I love you, Nathan Brooks. I love your daughter. I love this complicated, beautiful thing we're building together. I love you too. More than I knew I could love someone again. Nathan kissed her properly then, pouring into the contact all his gratitude and hope, and the quiet certainty that they were going to be okay. Now go to work before you're late, and I get blamed for making the hospital's best pediatrics resident miss her shift. I'm not the best. You are to us. Emily left with a smile that Nathan could still see in his mind as he returned to his apartment. He checked on Lily one more time. She'd kicked off her blankets as usual, and he tucked them back around her gently. Then he stood in his living room, looking at the signs of their expanding family. Emily's medical textbook still on the couch where she'd been studying. The drawing Lily had been working on, now complete and showing 3 stick figures labeled Daddy, Lily, and Miss Emily. The faint scent of Emily's perfume lingering in the air. This was what love looked like when you built it carefully and deliberately. Not the passionate whirlwind of early romance, but the steady accumulation of shared moments and mutual care. It was Emily's willingness to wait for Lily's acceptance. It was Lily's courage to imagine a new version of family. It was Nathan's own journey from fear to faith, from isolation to openness. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. How are things going with that situation you were confused about? Nathan smiled and typed back, Figured it out. Turns out sometimes the scariest thing is also the right thing. His mother's response came immediately. That's what being brave looks like. Proud of you, son. When do I get to meet her? Nathan looked at the drawing on the table again, at his daughter's innocent inclusion of Emily in their family portrait, and felt something settle into place. They weren't rushing toward anything, weren't forcing a timeline that didn't feel natural. They were simply allowing love to unfold at its own pace, creating space for it to grow strong and deep rather than hot and fast. Soon, he typed to his mother, when the time is right, you'll meet her soon. He set down his phone and moved to the window, looking out at the Denver skyline lit up against the night sky. Somewhere out there, Emily was beginning her shift at the hospital, caring for sick children with the same gentle patience she'd shown his daughter. Somewhere across town, Marcus was probably still awake, pleased that his intervention had led to something real. Somewhere in Florida, his mother was smiling and feeling hopeful about her son's future. And here, in this modest apartment that had seen so much heartbreak and healing, Nathan stood in the quiet darkness and allowed himself to believe in possibility again. The white shirt still hung in his closet, a reminder of the evening everything changed, of the courage it took to stop running and start reaching. He'd put it on thinking he was getting ready for a date with a stranger, never imagining he'd end the night discovering he was already in love with the woman next door. Life had a way of surprising you like that, Nathan thought, You made your plans and built your walls and convinced yourself you had everything figured out. And then someone knocked on your door asking your opinion about what shirt to wear, and suddenly everything you thought you knew shifted into something new and uncertain and infinitely more interesting. Nathan closed the curtains and moved through his apartment, turning off lights and preparing for bed. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges and joys. Sunday breakfast with Lily, that movie date they'd promised each other, maybe an afternoon text from Emily between her rounds at the hospital. The routine would continue, but it would continue with hope threaded through it now, with the knowledge that isolation was a choice rather than a requirement. He fell asleep thinking about Emily's smile, about Lily's growing acceptance, about the family they were becoming one careful day at a time. And for the first time in 3 years, Nathan's dreams weren't haunted by loss and abandonment. Instead, they were filled with quiet mornings and shared laughter and the gentle promise of a future built on trust rather than fear. The months that followed brought a rhythm to their lives that felt both new and inevitable, as if this configuration of family had always been waiting to take shape. Winter settled over Denver with its characteristic intensity, bringing snow that transformed the city into something clean and crystalline. Nathan watched his daughter and Emily build a lopsided snowman in the apartment complex courtyard one Saturday afternoon, their laughter rising like steam in the cold air, and felt a contentment so profound it almost frightened him. Emily had moved more fully into their lives without any single dramatic moment of transition. She kept her own apartment. That boundary felt important to maintain for now, but her presence became woven through their daily existence in ways both practical and profound. She attended Lily's school winter concert, sitting beside Nathan and applauding enthusiastically when his daughter sang off-key with her classmates. She helped with homework on evenings when Nathan was running late from work. She joined their Sunday morning pancake tradition, and Lily had stopped calling her Miss Emily, the title dropping away naturally until she was just Emily, a person who belonged. But belonging brought its own complications. One evening in late January, Nathan arrived home from work to find Emily and Lily in the middle of a disagreement about bedtime. He could hear their voices from the hallway, Lily's rising with that particular whine that signaled approaching meltdown, Emily's patient but firm. "Lily, your dad said bedtime is 8:30. It's already 8:45. "But you're not my mom. You can't tell me when to go to bed." Nathan opened the door to find them facing off in the living room, Lily's arms crossed defiantly across her chest, Emily's expression caught between hurt and frustration. Both of them turned when he entered, and Nathan felt the weight of being caught between them, of having to navigate a conflict that had no easy resolution. "What's going on?" he asked carefully, setting down his work bag. "Emily's trying to make me go to bed, and it's not even late." Lily's voice carried that edge of tears that meant she was overtired and working herself into a state. "It's almost 9 o'clock, Lily B. That's definitely past bedtime." Nathan moved into the living room, reading the tension in Emily's shoulders. "Why don't you go brush your teeth and get into your pajamas? I'll be there in a minute to tuck you in." "But Daddy—" "Now, please." Lily stomped off toward the bathroom, her displeasure evident in every heavy footfall. Nathan waited until he heard the bathroom door close before turning to Emily. "I'm sorry," Emily said immediately. "I shouldn't have pushed. I know bedtime is your territory, but she kept negotiating for just 5 more minutes, and I thought I was helping by enforcing the rules you've set. But then she pulled out the 'you're not my mom' card, and I didn't know how to respond to that." Nathan pulled her into a hug, feeling her tension gradually ease. "You were helping. Lily knows her bedtime. She was testing you because that's what kids do. They push boundaries to see if they'll hold. The fact that she tried that argument means she sees you as someone with authority in her life, which is actually progress, even if it doesn't feel like it right now." "It feels like I overstepped." "You didn't. But this is the complicated part we knew was coming. You're not her mother, and we can't pretend you are, but you're also not just a family friend anymore. We're figuring out what role you do play, and that means sometimes there will be moments like this where the boundaries aren't clear." Nathan pulled back to look at her face. "Are you okay?" "Just rattled. I hate conflict, especially with Lily. I want her to see me as someone safe and supportive, not someone who makes her angry. She does see you that way. She's just tired and testing limits. Tomorrow she'll probably act like nothing happened. Nathan kissed her forehead. Let me go handle bedtime, and then we can talk about how to navigate these situations better going forward. Lily was in her pajamas when Nathan entered her room, sitting on her bed with her arms still crossed and her expression mutinous. He sat beside her and waited, knowing better than to force conversation when she was in this mood. I don't like when Emily tries to be the boss of me, Lily said finally. Emily wasn't trying to be the boss. She was helping make sure you followed the rules we already have. That's different. But you're my dad. You're supposed to be in charge. I am in charge. But Lily, when Emily is here taking care of you, she gets to help make sure you're safe and following the rules. That doesn't mean she's replacing me. It means she's supporting me. Nathan smoothed back his daughter's hair gently. You hurt her feelings when you said she's not your mom. She's not. No, she's not. And nobody is trying to pretend she is. But she loves you and cares about you, and when you say things to hurt her, that makes her sad. Just like it makes you sad when someone says something mean to you. Lily's defiance crumbled slightly. I didn't mean to make her sad. I was just mad because I wasn't ready for bed yet. I know, sweetheart, but part of growing up is learning that even when we're mad, we need to be kind. Emily deserves kindness from you, especially because she's been so patient and caring with you. Nathan pulled Lily onto his lap, holding her close. Can you apologize to her tomorrow? I guess. Lily was quiet for a moment, then asked in a small voice, Daddy, is Emily going to be here forever? The question caught Nathan off guard with its weight. I don't know about forever, but she's planning to be here for a very long time. We both are. Does that scare you? A little. What if she leaves like Mommy did? There it was. The fear Nathan had known was lurking beneath the surface, the wound that Sarah's abandonment had left that would probably take years to fully heal. He held his daughter tighter, wishing he could protect her from this particular pain, but knowing he could only help her learn to carry it. Emily's not your mommy, Lily. She's Emily, and she loves us in a different way than Mommy did. I can't promise you that nothing will ever change, or that people will never leave. But I can promise you that Emily is here because she chooses to be, because she wants to be part of our family. And that choice matters. But what if she changes her mind? Then we'll deal with it together, you and me, just like we've dealt with everything else. Nathan pressed a kiss to the top of her head. But sweetheart, you can't protect yourself from being hurt by pushing people away before they have a chance to leave. Sometimes you have to be brave enough to let people in, even when you're scared. Lily was silent, absorbing this. Then she whispered, I do like having Emily here. I was just mad about bedtime. I know, and that's okay. You're allowed to be mad sometimes. You just need to be kind even when you're mad. They sat together for a few more minutes before Nathan tucked Lily into bed with the usual routine of stories and songs and the door left open just a crack. When he returned to the living room, he found Emily on the couch with her medical textbooks, though she clearly wasn't retaining any of the information on the pages. How is she? Emily asked immediately. She's okay, feeling a little guilty about what she said, which is appropriate. She'll apologize tomorrow. Nathan sat beside her and pulled her close. She also asked if you're going to be here forever. Turns out the conflict wasn't really about bedtime. It was about her being scared that you'll leave like Sarah did. Emily closed her textbook with a sigh. I should have realized. Kids don't usually fight about bedtime unless something else is bothering them. You're not a mind reader, Em. Neither am I, and I've been parenting her for 6 years. We're going to hit bumps like this. What matters is how we handle them. Nathan tilted her face toward his. You did nothing wrong. You enforced reasonable boundaries, and Lily pushed back because that's what kids do when they're testing whether the adults in their life will stay consistent. This is normal, even if it's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel normal. It feels like I'm navigating a minefield where any wrong step could damage my relationship with her. Welcome to parenting. That feeling never goes away. Nathan's smile was gentle. But here's the thing. Relationships with kids aren't as fragile as you think. Lily loves you. One argument about bedtime isn't going to change that. Tomorrow she'll wake up and probably ask if you're coming for pancakes. And this whole thing will be forgotten. Kids are resilient like that. Emily leaned her head on his shoulder, exhaustion evident in the gesture. I'm terrified of messing this up, of saying the wrong thing or enforcing the wrong boundary, or somehow making her feel like I'm trying to replace her mother. I want to be good at this, Nathan. I want to be someone she can count on. You already are. The fact that you're worried about messing up proves how much you care. Bad parental figures don't worry about these things. They just bulldoze forward, convinced they're right. You're thoughtful and careful and so incredibly patient with her. That's more than enough. They sat together in comfortable silence, the only sound the quiet hum of the heating system and the occasional car passing outside. Nathan thought about how far they'd come in the past few months, from careful distance to this kind of intimacy where they could navigate conflicts together and come out stronger on the other side. I love you, Emily said quietly. Both of you. This weird little family we're building, even when it's hard and complicated and I have no idea what I'm doing. I love you too. And for what it's worth, I also have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. We're just figuring it out as we go. The next morning proved Nathan right about Lily's resilience. She woke up cheerful and immediately asked if Emily was coming for pancakes. When Emily arrived, Lily ran to her and wrapped her arms around Emily's waist. I'm sorry I said you're not my mom, Lily said into Emily's sweater. That was mean. You're not my mom, but you're important anyway. Emily knelt down and hugged Lily properly. Thank you for apologizing. And you're right, I'm not your mom, but I'm someone who loves you very much and wants to be part of your life. Is that okay with you? Yeah, can we make chocolate chip pancakes? Just like that, the crisis was resolved with the easy forgiveness of childhood. They made pancakes together, the three of them moving around the kitchen with practiced coordination. Lily chattered about school and her friend Emma's upcoming birthday party, the conflict from the night before apparently forgotten. But Nathan caught Emily's eye over his daughter's head and saw the relief there, the understanding that they'd navigated their first real parenting challenge together and survived. February brought Valentine's Day, which Nathan had largely ignored for the past 3 years beyond getting Lily a small gift and helping her make cards for her classmates. This year felt different. Emily had mentioned offhandedly that she'd never really celebrated Valentine's Day in a meaningful way. Medical school hadn't left much time for romance, and her previous relationships had been with men who considered the holiday a commercial conspiracy. Nathan wanted to do something special, something that acknowledged how important Emily had become to their lives. But planning anything was complicated by his responsibilities to Lily and his limited budget. He discussed it with Marcus over the phone one evening while Lily was at a playdate. Take her to dinner, Marcus suggested. Something nice, I'll watch Lily. I can't afford nice and pay a babysitter. Then don't pay me. I'm offering as a friend. Besides, Jennifer's been wanting an excuse to hang out with Lily. We'll make it a group activity. You and Jennifer are still in touch? Turns out we actually are better as friends. She's dating someone she met at a teacher conference, and I'm seeing someone from work. But we have become genuinely good friends, which is kind of nice. Marcus paused. Let me do this for you, brother. You've been alone for 3 years. You deserve one romantic evening. Nathan accepted the offer and began planning. He made reservations at a small Italian restaurant that Emily had mentioned loving, the kind of place with candlelight and intimate tables that would feel special without being ostentatious. He bought her flowers, not roses, which felt too generic, but a mixed bouquet of wildflowers that reminded him of her unpretentious beauty. He even retrieved the white shirt from his closet, the one Emily had picked out all those months ago, and had it professionally cleaned. On Valentine's evening, Nathan dropped Lily off at Marcus's apartment where Jennifer was already waiting with art supplies and Disney movies. His daughter barely noticed his departure, already absorbed in the activities they'd planned. Nathan drove to Emily's apartment with nerves fluttering in his stomach like he was 16 again and picking up a date for prom. Emily answered her door wearing a simple green dress that matched her eyes, her hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She looked beautiful and slightly nervous, her usual confidence tempered by the significance of the evening. You look incredible, Nathan said, offering her the flowers. You're wearing the white shirt. Emily's smile was radiant as she took the bouquet. The same shirt you wore on your date with Jennifer. Seemed fitting. That night was when everything started to change. Nathan stepped into her apartment while she put the flowers in water, though I had no idea then that the best thing in my life was waiting right across the hall. That's incredibly romantic for someone who claims he doesn't know how to do this. I'm learning. You're a good teacher. Dinner was perfect in the way that simple things often are when shared with the right person. They talked about everything and nothing, laughed over shared memories, and made plans for the future. Emily told him about a potential pediatric fellowship she was considering, then immediately worried aloud about whether taking it would mean less time for him and Lily. You have to pursue your career, Nathan said firmly. Your dreams don't become less important just because you're in a relationship. We'll figure out how to make it work. That's what I love about you, Emily said, reaching across the table to take his hand. You don't ask me to choose between my ambitions and our relationship. You assume we can have both. Because we can. It might require creativity and compromise, but we can make it work. That's what partnership means, supporting each other's goals, not competing with them. On the drive home, Emily was quiet, her hand resting on Nathan's thigh in comfortable intimacy. When they pulled into the apartment complex parking lot, she didn't immediately move to get out of the car. Nathan, can I ask you something? Anything. Where do you see this going? Us, long term. The question hung in the car like a physical presence. Nathan turned off the engine and shifted to face her, taking her hands in his. Honestly, I see you in every part of my future I can imagine. I see you at Lily's school events and birthday parties. I see you in this apartment, or maybe a bigger place we get together. I see you becoming a doctor, and me being incredibly proud of you. I see us building a life that makes sense for all three of us. So you've thought about it. Every day. Have you? Constantly. I try not to get ahead of myself, but sometimes I imagine what it would be like if we actually did this, if we built a real family together. Not just dating, but committed, maybe even married eventually, though I know that's a huge step and we're not there yet. Emily looked down at their intertwined hands. Is that crazy? Am I moving too fast? Nathan thought about the white shirt hanging in his closet, about the evening that had started with him preparing for a date with a stranger and ended with Emily's confession of love. He thought about the months since then, the careful building of trust and intimacy and shared life. He thought about Lily's drawing with 3 stick figures labeled Daddy, Lily, and Emily. He thought about his mother asking when she could meet the woman who'd made him smile again. It's not crazy, he said quietly, and you're not moving too fast. If anything, I'm moving slow because I'm scared. But Em, I need you to know that when I imagine my future, you're in it. Not as a maybe or a possibility, but as a certainty. I want to build a life with you. I want Lily to have you as a constant presence, not just someone who might leave. I want us to be a family in every way that matters. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying I love you. I'm saying I want a future with you. I'm saying that when the time is right, when we've both finished building the foundations we need, I want to marry you and make this official. I want to wake up every morning knowing you're part of my life permanently. Nathan reached up and wiped away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. Is that what you wanted to hear? It's better than what I wanted to hear. It's everything. Emily leaned forward and kissed him, the contact tender and full of promise. When they pulled apart, she was smiling through her tears. I want that too, all of it. The messy, complicated, beautiful all of it. They sat in the car for another few minutes, holding each other and letting the significance of what they'd acknowledged settle around them. This wasn't a proposal. They both understood that formal commitments would come later, when the timing was right and Lily was ready for that next step. But it was a promise, a declaration that they were building towards something permanent rather than just seeing where things went. When Nathan finally walked Emily to her apartment door, he kissed her goodnight with the kind of depth that spoke of certainty rather than questions. Then he crossed the hallway to his own apartment, retrieved Lily from Marcus's place, and tucked his sleepy daughter into bed with the usual routine. Did you have fun with Emily? Lily asked through a yawn. I did. We had a really nice dinner. Good. I like when you're happy, Daddy. You smile more now. Nathan pressed a kiss to her forehead, thinking about how perceptive his daughter was, how much she noticed even when he thought he was protecting her from adult complications. I am happy, Lily B. Very happy. Now get some sleep. Morning comes faster when you dream. Spring arrived gradually, Denver's winter reluctance giving way to cautious warmth and the first brave crocuses pushing through lingering snow. Nathan's relationship with Emily continued to deepen, their lives intertwining in ways both practical and profound. Emily started keeping spare clothes at his apartment for nights when she was too tired to walk across the hall. Nathan had a key to her place and would occasionally leave her notes of encouragement before big exams. Lily started calling their Saturday mornings family breakfast, the terminology shifting without any formal announcement. But the question of Emily's living situation was becoming more obvious. She was at Nathan's apartment more than her own. Her lease was coming up for renewal, and they were essentially paying for 2 apartments when one would suffice. Nathan knew they needed to have a conversation about next steps, about whether Emily should renew her lease or if they were ready for her to move in officially. He broached the subject one evening in late April while they sat on his couch after Lily was asleep. Emily had been studying for her boards, her stress level climbing as the exam date approached, and Nathan had been trying to provide support without adding to her pressure. "Your lease is up in 2 months," he said carefully, interrupting her 10th read-through of a particularly complex chapter on cardiac anomalies. Emily looked up from her textbook, immediately understanding where this was going. "It is. You basically live here already. You have a drawer in my dresser and a toothbrush in the bathroom. Half your clothes are in my closet. Lily asks for you when you're not here." Nathan took her hand, choosing his words carefully. "I'm not trying to pressure you, but I think we need to talk about whether it makes sense for you to renew that lease or if we're ready to make this official. You want me to move in? I want us to be honest about what we already are. We're not just dating anymore, Em. We're building a life together. Paying for 2 apartments when you sleep here 5 nights a week seems wasteful, but this is a huge decision and it has to feel right for both of us, especially for Lily." Emily set down her textbook, her full attention on him now. "Have you talked to Lily about this?" "Not yet. I wanted to see how you felt first. If you're not ready, then there's no point in bringing it up with her." "I'm ready," Emily said immediately, then paused. "Actually, that's not entirely true. I'm terrified. Moving in together is a big step. It means we're committed in a way that's much harder to walk away from if things get difficult. And with Lily involved, the stakes feel even higher. But Nathan, I'm ready to be terrified with you. I'm ready to take that leap." They talked late into the night about logistics and concerns and what this would mean for each of them. Emily worried about losing her independence, about the pressure of being seen as a parental figure to Lily all the time rather than occasionally. Nathan worried about whether his small apartment could actually accommodate 3 people comfortably, whether they should consider finding a bigger place together. They discussed boundaries and expectations, how they'd navigate conflicts and maintain their individual identities while building a shared life. By the time Emily left for her own apartment at 2 in the morning, she still had studying to finish. They'd agreed on a plan. They'd talked to Lily together about Emily potentially moving in. If Lily was comfortable with the idea, they'd start the process of combining households. They wouldn't rush it, would give Lily time to adjust to each change, but they'd move forward with intention rather than continuing to drift in this liminal space between dating and commitment. The conversation with Lily happened on a Saturday morning during their family breakfast. Nathan and Emily had agreed to be straightforward but low-key, to present it as a natural progression rather than a dramatic change. "Lily, Emily and I want to talk to you about something," Nathan began as they cleared away pancake plates. "Emily's apartment lease is ending soon, and we've been thinking that since she's here so much anyway, maybe it would make sense for her to move in with us. What do you think about that?" Lily looked between them, processing this information with the seriousness it deserved. "Like she'd live here all the time?" "Yes," Emily said gently. "I'd officially move in and we'd all share this space. But Lily, your room would still be your room. Your time with your dad would still be protected. Nothing about our routines would have to change unless you wanted them to." "Where would you sleep?" "With your dad, in his room, just like when I stay over now, but permanently." Lily was quiet for a moment, her small forehead creased in thought. "What if I don't like it? What if I want it to go back to just me and Daddy?" "Then we'd talk about it," Nathan said firmly. "Your feelings matter, Lily. If having Emily here all the time makes you uncomfortable, we need to know that. This is your home too." "But you want her to move in?" "I do, but only if you're okay with it. Emily and I are partners, and we want to build a life together. But you're part of that life, and your comfort and happiness are the most important things." Lily looked at Emily with an expression that reminded Nathan painfully of himself, cautious, weighing risk against reward, trying to protect a heart that had already been broken once. Emily, if you move in and then change your mind and leave, that would be really sad. Emily slid off her chair and knelt beside Lily, taking the girl's hands. You're right, it would be really sad. But Lily, I'm not planning to change my mind. I love your dad, and I love you. I want to be here for family breakfasts and helping with homework and watching you grow up. I want to be part of this family for real, not just visiting. Does that sound okay to you? I guess. Lily bit her lip, then added quietly, I like when you're here. The apartment feels more full. But what if my friends think it's weird that you live here, but you're not my mom? Then you can explain that families come in all different shapes, Nathan said. Some kids have two parents who live together. Some have parents who live apart. Some have step-parents or grandparents or other people who help take care of them. There's no one right way to be a family. Emma has a stepmom, Lily said thoughtfully. She says it was weird at first, but now it's normal. Is Emily going to be my stepmom? Nathan and Emily exchanged a glance. They'd discussed this possibility, but hadn't settled on terminology. Emily answered carefully, I think that's something we can figure out over time. Right now, I'm just Emily. If someday you want to think of me as a stepmom, that would be okay, but there's no pressure. I'm happy just being Emily who loves you and lives with you and helps take care of you. Lily nodded slowly. Okay, Emily can move in, but we're still doing family breakfast every Saturday, right? Absolutely, Nathan confirmed. That's non-negotiable. And I still get to have special time just with you sometimes? Always. That will never change, Lily B. Okay. Then it's okay. Lily hopped off her chair with the resilience of childhood, apparently considering the matter settled. Can we go to the park now? Just like that, the decision was made. Over the next 6 weeks, Emily gradually moved her belongings from her apartment across the hall into Nathan's space. They purged and reorganized, making room for Emily's medical textbooks and clothes and the small personal items that transformed the apartment from Nathan's space into their space. Lily helped enthusiastically, treating Emily's move as an extended project that involved lots of decisions about where things should go and whether they needed new furniture. The actual moving day in early June was chaotic and wonderful. Marcus and Jennifer came to help, along with 2 of Emily's med school friends. They hauled boxes and furniture, argued good-naturedly about the best way to arrange the living room, and ordered pizza for dinner because everyone was too exhausted to cook. Lily was everywhere at once, excited and helpful, and occasionally underfoot in the way of children who want to participate in adult activities. That evening, after everyone had left and Lily was asleep in her room, Nathan and Emily stood in their bedroom looking at the space they now officially shared. Emily's clothes hung beside his in the closet. Her books filled the shelves they'd installed. Her photos of family and friends sat on the dresser alongside his. It was real now, permanent in a way that felt both thrilling and terrifying. We did it, Emily said, leaning back against Nathan's chest as his arms wrapped around her. We actually did it. Having second thoughts? Not even a little. You? None. This feels right. Nathan pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Welcome home, Em. She turned in his arms and kissed him properly, the contact conveying everything they'd built together over the past year, trust and patience, and a love that had grown from friendship into something deeper and more enduring. When they pulled apart, Emily was smiling. I never imagined this when I moved into that apartment across the hall. I was just looking for a quiet place to study and sleep between hospital shifts. I never thought I'd find a family. I never imagined it either. I'd convinced myself I was fine alone, that Lily and I had everything we needed. Turns out I was wrong. They got ready for bed together, navigating the new routine of shared space with easy coordination. As Nathan set his alarm and Emily plugged in her phone, he thought about how natural this felt, how right. They'd taken their time getting here, had been careful and deliberate and thoughtful about every step. But they'd arrived, and it was everything he'd hoped for. The summer that followed brought its own adjustments and joys. Emily passed her boards with scores that had her professors talking about residency programs at prestigious hospitals. Nathan got a promotion at work that came with a modest raise and more reasonable hours. Lily finished first grade with excellent marks and spent the summer attending day camp and having adventures with Emily when her schedule allowed. They developed new routines as a household of three. Sunday morning farmers' market visits became a tradition, the three of them wandering through stalls of fresh produce and baked goods. Wednesday evenings were pizza and movie nights. Saturday mornings remained sacrosanct for family breakfast. But now Emily made the pancakes while Nathan handled the bacon and Lily set the table. There were difficult moments too. Emily and Nathan had their first real fight in August over household responsibilities, both of them exhausted and snapping at each other before finally sitting down to actually communicate about division of labor and expectations. Lily tested boundaries with Emily, occasionally trying to play them against each other until Nathan and Emily learned to present a united front. The apartment that had felt spacious for two people sometimes felt cramped with three, especially when Emily was studying for a big exam and needed quiet while Lily wanted to play. But they worked through each challenge with the same careful intention they'd brought to building their relationship. They talked honestly about frustrations and fears. They apologized when they were wrong and forgave each other's mistakes. They remembered that they were a team, that problems were meant to be solved together rather than held as weapons against each other. One evening in September, a year and 1 month after Emily's initial confession of love, Nathan came home from work to find his apartment transformed. Candles lit the living room, their favorite takeout was warming in the oven, and Emily stood in the kitchen wearing one of his old college t-shirts and looking nervous. "What's all this?" Nathan asked, setting down his work bag. "It's our anniversary." "Sort of. It's been a year since I told you I loved you, since everything changed between us. I wanted to mark the occasion." Emily moved toward him, taking his hands. "This year has been the best year of my life, Nathan. Moving in together, building a family with you and Lily, learning what it means to actually partner with someone. It's been everything I never knew I wanted." Nathan pulled her close, overwhelmed by love and gratitude for this woman who'd taken a chance on him when he was too scared to take chances on himself. "It's been the best year of my life, too. You've transformed everything, Em. You've made me remember how to be more than just a father, how to be a whole person." "Where's Lily?" Emily asked after a moment. "Marcus picked her up after camp. She's sleeping over at his place tonight. Apparently this was a coordinated effort." "I might have made some calls." Emily grinned. "I wanted us to have an evening just the two of us, to remember why we started this in the first place." They ate dinner by candlelight, talking and laughing and reminiscing about the past year. After they'd cleaned up, Nathan noticed Emily seemed nervous again, fidgeting with her napkin and avoiding his eyes. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, there's one more thing." Emily stood and disappeared into the bedroom, returning with a small wrapped box. "I got you something. It's probably silly, but I saw it and thought of you." Nathan unwrapped the box to find a framed photograph he'd never seen before. It was the picture he'd taken at the park last fall. Lily mid-swing with Emily grinning in the background. But Emily had found it on his phone and had it professionally printed and framed. Across the bottom, she'd written in her neat handwriting, "The moment I knew we were a family." Nathan felt his throat tighten. "Em, this is perfect. I wanted you to have something that reminded you of where we started, of the moment you chose to stop being scared and start being brave." Emily moved to stand beside him, looking at the photo. "That day at the park, when you let yourself just be happy instead of worrying about all the ways things could go wrong, that's when I knew we'd be okay. That's when I knew you were ready to let me in." Nathan set the photo down carefully and pulled Emily into his arms. "I love you so much, more than I have words for. I love you too, both of you, you and Lily, this family we've built." Emily pulled back and looked up at him. "Nathan, I know we've talked about the future in abstract terms, about maybe getting married someday, about building a life together. But I need you to know that I'm not waiting anymore. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Whenever you're ready." The words hung in the air between them, loaded with implication. Nathan thought about the ring he'd been slowly saving for, the proposal he'd been imagining but hadn't felt quite ready to execute. He thought about Lily and whether she was ready for that next step, whether adding legal and social weight to Emily's presence in their lives would feel like security or pressure. But mostly, he thought about Emily standing in their apartment that they shared, surrounded by the life they'd built together, offering him not an ultimatum, but a promise. She was ready. She'd been ready. The question was whether he could match her courage. "I'm ready too," Nathan heard himself say. "I don't have a ring yet, and this isn't how I plan to do this, but I want to marry you. I want to make this official. I want Lily to have you as a permanent part of her life legally, and not just emotionally. I want to build a future with you that's committed and intentional and permanent." Emily's eyes widened. "Are you proposing?" "I'm saying I want to, soon, properly, with a ring and a plan and Lily's blessing. But I need you to know that you're it for me. You're the person I want to wake up beside for the rest of my life. You're the person I want to navigate challenges with and celebrate victories with and just exist beside in all the ordinary moments that make up a life." Tears were streaming down Emily's face now, but she was smiling brilliantly. "Yes. I haven't actually asked yet. I don't care. Yes. To the proposal you're planning, and the ring you're saving for, and the life you're describing. Yes to all of it." Nathan laughed and kissed her, tasting salt from her tears and feeling joy expand in his chest like a physical force. They stood in their living room holding each other, the candles still flickering and the photo of their beginning sitting on the table nearby. This was it, Nathan thought. This was what love looked like when you built it carefully and deliberately, when you took the time to create a foundation strong enough to support a lifetime. The actual proposal happened 3 weeks later on a Saturday morning during family breakfast. Nathan had enlisted Lily's help, explaining that he wanted to ask Emily to marry them and making sure his daughter was comfortable with the idea. Lily had been enthusiastic, helping pick out a simple but beautiful ring and practicing how she'd present it to Emily. Emily suspected nothing when they sat down for pancakes that Saturday. She poured syrup and listened to Lily chatter about a school project and smiled at Nathan across the table with the easy contentment that had become characteristic of their mornings together. "Emily, can I ask you something?" Lily said suddenly, her small voice serious. "Of course, sweetheart. Do you want to be part of our family forever?" Emily glanced at Nathan, confused by the question. "I already am part of your family, Lily. But, like, officially, with the wedding and everything." Lily produced the ring box from beneath the table, her hands trembling slightly with excitement and nervousness. "Daddy and I want to know if you'll marry us, both of us, because we love you and we want you to stay forever." Emily's hands flew to her mouth, tears already forming in her eyes. She looked from Lily to Nathan, who'd moved to kneel beside his daughter, both of them offering her this moment together. "You've transformed our lives in ways I can't adequately express," Nathan said, his voice rough with emotion. "You've made me remember what it means to be brave, to be open, to trust that good things can last. You've loved Lily without reservation and supported me without judgment. You've become essential to our happiness. Will you marry me? Will you officially become part of this family we've built?" Emily was crying in earnest now, nodding before she could even speak. "Yes. Yes. Of course, yes." Lily opened the ring box and held it up, and Nathan took the ring and slid it onto Emily's finger. Then they were all crying and hugging and laughing, a tangle of 3 people who'd found each other through circumstances neither of them could have predicted. The pancakes grew cold on the table, forgotten in the significance of the moment, but none of them cared. Later that day, after they'd called family and friends with the news, after Lily had told everyone at the park that Emily was going to be her official stepmom, after the excitement had settled into quiet joy, Nathan stood at the bedroom window looking out at the Denver skyline. Emily came up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About a white shirt," Nathan said. "About a simple question that changed everything. About how sometimes the scariest thing you can do is also the exact right thing." Emily rested her head against his back. "I'm glad you were brave that night. Glad you came back from that date, and let me tell you the truth. I'm glad you were brave enough to tell it. Glad you didn't give up on me even when I was too scared to see what was right in front of me." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the city they both loved. Somewhere down the hall, Lily was playing in her room, singing to herself in the unconscious way of happy children. The apartment around them was filled with signs of the life they'd built. Photos on the walls, books on the shelves, the comfortable clutter of people who'd stopped being careful about keeping separate spaces. This was family, Nathan thought. Not the version he'd planned or expected, but the one he'd been brave enough to create when he'd stopped protecting himself and started reaching for possibility. It had started with a neighbor asking his opinion about what shirt to wear, continued with a confession of love he wasn't ready to hear, and culminated in this moment of absolute certainty that he'd found exactly what he needed in the last place he thought to look. The white shirt still hung in the closet, a reminder of the night everything changed. Nathan wore it occasionally now, to dinner dates with Emily, to special occasions, to moments when he wanted to remember how far they'd come. It was just a shirt, simple cotton and buttons. But it represented the courage to try, the willingness to be vulnerable, the faith that love was worth the risk, even when risk felt terrifying. Emily turned in his arms and kissed him softly. "I love you, Nathan Brooks. Thank you for letting me into your life." "I love you too. Thank you for being patient while I figured out how to let you in." From down the hall came Lily's voice calling for them, some urgent 6-year-old need that required immediate adult attention. They pulled apart with shared smiles and headed toward her room, moving as a unit the way they'd learned to do over months of practice. This was their life now. Ordinary moments and extraordinary love, shared responsibilities and mutual support. The beautiful complexity of 3 people choosing each other every single day. Nathan thought about the version of himself who'd stood in this apartment a year ago, lonely and scared and convinced that safety meant staying small. That man was gone, replaced by someone who understood that the greatest safety came not from avoiding risk, but from building something strong enough to withstand it. He'd learned that love wasn't the enemy of stability. It was the foundation of it. That opening your heart didn't make you weak, it made you whole. And it had all started with a simple question about what shirt to wear, asked to a neighbor he'd barely known was in love with him. Sometimes, Nathan thought as he settled onto Lily's floor to help with whatever project had captured her attention, the most important moments of your life announced themselves quietly, disguised as ordinary interactions that turned out to be anything but ordinary. You just had to be brave enough to recognize them and courageous enough to let them change you. The evening continued in its comfortable way, full of laughter and love, and the particular joy that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're